Chapter 432. Prompt. Thorleil's guidance has been completed. Prompt. You have persisted for more than 30 minutes. Prompt. You have obtained 5 million experience points. Prompt. You have obtained a random endowment of Thor Thunder's Destruction of Thunder, F***. After William dodged the Thunder God's attack, he could not help but curse. It was the destruction of thunder. This talent couldn't be considered top-notch, but it was still a talent that an epic thunder element professional should have. Let's put it this way. He did not have this endowment. You can't even be considered a powerful thunder epic profession. Endowment, Destruction of Thunder. 20% of your thunder attribute attack power will be converted into true damage. It was that simple. But this was a very stable, true damage endowment. It allowed William to deal considerable true damage without relying on weapons and equipment. William's thunder attribute attack power was about 8,000, 13,000. In other words, apart from normal damage and critical damage, each of his attacks would have at least 1,600 points of true damage. It seemed a little low, but the true damage could be stacked, and William's attack speed was also very fast. Except for a few meat shields who could defend against true damage, most people could not withstand it. It's a pity that I didn't get Thor's possession of true thunder. Otherwise, it would have been an explosion. The prince sighed. Thor's possession of true thunder would have 70% thunder attribute true damage in almost every attack. If Thor had not been tanky enough and his health points recovered fast enough, he would have been killed. But then again, I'll find a chance to fight with Thor a few more times in the future. I'll cheat him of his lightning spear, thunder incarnation, and other ultimate skills. That would be great. Yes, at least if he doesn't want to kill me, I'll fight him one-on-one. The banquet could no longer continue. The duel between William and Thor was like a demolition contest. It was a competition to see who could demolish more buildings. Fortunately, Caesar's wedding was held in the palace. Otherwise, even if the two of them were not complained about, they would still be gossiped about. Just as the prince was about to greet Caesar and return to his residence to rest, he saw that there were two women on each side of Caesar. Being sandwiched in the middle, Caesar's face darkened, and he was at a loss of what to do. There was a hint of confusion and despair in his eyes. Caesar was not caught red-handed by his fiancée. After all, they did not dare to do anything improper in broad daylight. But just now, when Gia said to Caesar that she would give him money to rebuild the palace, that beautiful little Caesar was overjoyed and directly kissed the super-rich female cannon gunner. However, something was not right. His fiancée, Orfila, not only saw it, but she also appeared in front of him in the next second. TSK. Caesar, who was only at the Grandmaster level, was so shocked that he almost kicked Gia away when facing his epic-rank fiancée. If not for the fact that he was the second prince of the End-War Empire, he might have been beaten to a pulp on the spot. It couldn't be helped. Even if Orfila wasn't an epic, she was still a melee pugilist with dual fire and thunder elements. Her physique might seem small, but if she were to use her family's secret arts, her physique would expand by at least 3 times. Caesar would be done for. In particular, Orfila was the great-granddaughter of the unparalleled battle sage. As long as she did not destroy Caesar's bloodline, she would beat him up. The Emperor of End-War would not say much. He even said to Orfila's elders, "They're all youngsters. They fight at the head of the bed and reconcile at the end. Caesar has thick skin and flesh. He will recover after being beaten up for a few more days." Cough. This was what William thought of. After all, Caesar seemed to have suffered from bronchitis back then. Even though he had slept with Gia, he did not marry her. You guys continue chatting. I have something to do here. I'll take my leave first. Caesar was hugged by a beautiful woman on each of his left and right hands. He smiled insincerely as he bid farewell to the crowd. He turned back every few steps, intending to leave. "Have a safe trip, Your Highness. Have a safe trip, Your Highness." A group of people spoke in a tone as if they were sending off a dead person. The corner of Caesar's mouth twitched. He decided to turn around and leave. He was originally walking with hesitant and uneasy steps. He was still waiting for some good friend to find an excuse to drag him out of the abyss of suffering. In the end, no one cared about him. They were all watching the show from aside. D*MN. Didn't you say that you would support me with all your might? Are you afraid now? When it's time to fight for the throne, won't all of you run away? Caesar complained in his heart. Then, he was mercilessly dragged away by two women. It seemed like they wanted to determine a winner. William watched Caesar leave. He grinned and shook his head. I don't know when I'll fail if I have a foot in two boats. That makes sense. The Lord of the City of Dawn's words are brilliant. Akarov sighed. Then, he glanced at William and suddenly smiled. But with Prince William's looks, even if you have a foot in two boats, it doesn't seem to be a big deal. William coughed dryly. You're too kind. I'm not of age yet. I'm still single. After saying that, he left with a blood moon, which without looking back. He was afraid that this group of bastards would say something else. If the blood moon, which went back and reported it to Moses, who had become a great sorcerer, then he would be dead meat. After all, if I don't die, I'll be doomed. William took a deep breath and stopped thinking about these things. He glanced at the information list. Most of the professionals present today, as long as they did not have an innate dislike for him, most of them had a good impression of him with more than 100 points. If he gathered for a few more days, he might have a good impression of him with 300+ points. He had no choice. It was awesome to be handsome. Both men and women were welcome. Even though Thunder God Thor had angered him to death, his good impression of him did not decrease. This meant that the relationship between them could still be improved by using his good looks. But, in this banquet hall, there was one person who did not have a good impression of him. When he appeared, there was a message that his good impression of him had decreased. Rodoldo, 13th in the East Region Magic Conference. He's a dark and soul close combat wizard. William raised his eyebrows. This guy was bald, and his hairline reached the back of his head. He was a professional who had joined Caesar as an individual. According to logic, this kind of freelance professional who did not have a powerful background had to rely on Caesar for his life. After all, he was a wizard. If he wanted to become stronger, he had to rely on books. Only a rich man like Caesar could provide him with thousands of magic books. But I have no enmity with him. Why did his good impression of me decrease by 300 points out of nowhere? William thought about the scene of him drinking and talking with him. Rodoldo did not show any annoyance towards him. He even liked to chat with him or ask about some things. Oh, is that the spy that Crown Prince Peter planted? William thought for a while and did not intend to expose him immediately. After all, he had no evidence. His good impression of Caesar was only 600+. It was not to the point where he could confide in him or make him believe in him. When Rodoldo leaked the secret and caused great losses and impact on Caesar, he would say it, or he would find evidence that would allow him to gain greater benefits. 3 days passed by quickly. Caesar Giga, the rich man, did not stop him from continuing to interact with Guya. He did not know if he had convinced Orfira or if he had slept with her. Orfira was very righteous. She knew the benefits of the East Region Federation Chamber of Commerce supporting her man, so she planned to share Caesar with Guya. In short, he continued to hold banquets for the next few days. He entertained the guests who came to attend his wedding. William also brought the blood moon, which to eat and drink for 3 days. He extended his hand to many innocent professionals. His actions were ferocious. The average monthly income of the City of Dawn increased by 2.5 million gold coins. He did not come for nothing. What made him feel interesting was that Rodoldo, whose favorability towards him had decreased, also frequently appeared at the banquet. It seemed that he also had the intention of befriending others, and from his words, it seemed that he wanted to befriend others. It was a pity. Rodoldo was bald and ugly. He was only the 13th Grandmaster in the Magic Conference, but he was shamelessly teasing them. He was not qualified to do so. Everyone present was either a representative of a major power or an extremely powerful individual. Basically, no one cared about him. Therefore, when Rodoldo saw William steal his limelight, his good impression of him decreased again. But this kind of ugly, weak guy still wanted to join this circle. William was very moved by how shameless he was. But then again, most people would not think of Rodoldo as a spy. This greatly increased his safety. as long as he could become Caesar's lackey in the future. It was inevitable that he would come into contact with some core secrets. If they changed sides at the last minute, the Kaiser Empire might suffer heavy losses. But no matter what, William's days in the war-ending empire were coming to an end in the palace of the war-ending empire. There was a back garden that had a radius of 100,000 square meters. There were many rare herbivorous magical beasts and tamed carnivorous magical beasts. The surrounding trees and flowers were also colorful. The scenery was picturesque, and on one of the lawns, the wedding was officially held. The deputy commander of the Temple of Light in the eastern region was a legendary priest. He was also the host. Under his guidance, Caesar, who was dressed in a black aristocratic suit, exchanged rings with Orfira, who was dressed in a white princess dress. And when the two newlyweds kissed, accompanied by the applause of thousands of guests, the two officially became husband and wife. The most infuriating thing was that Guya, the female canon master, not only clapped loudly, but she even shed tears of happiness. There was nothing to see. A typical westernized wedding was basically the same. In the war-ending empire, there were many rules. There was no new style. He was here for the food anyway. In the next second, the prince strode towards the dining area and found a lot of precious food that could increase his attributes. Come, have a lemon. The blood moon, which obediently picked up a magic lemon for him. It was a super sour one. William glanced at her expressionlessly. I don't eat lemons. There are oranges, and sour dates. Which one do you like? The long-legged witch blinked her big eyes and took out another plate. It was filled with sour magic fruits. I don't eat sour things, William said solemnly. If you don't want to eat, then don't eat. Why are you scolding me? The witch pouted. Oh, D***MN. William clenched his teeth and clenched his fists. He was not like Caesar, who would be fooled easily. The blood moon, which was usually quiet. But today she was so talkative. Something must be wrong. So he asked mysteriously, tell me directly. What did you find? My master has broken through and returned to the city of dawn. Really? Yes, this is the news from my master. Are we going back now? We haven't eaten yet. We'll leave after we're done. Okay. Do you want to pack up? Don't embarrass yourself. I'm the prince of the Black Leaf Elves. I just met a fellow Black Leaf Elf. The blood moon, which nodded obediently. However, the prince coughed lightly again. But take some of the delicious food and bring it back to your master. Okay. Chapter 433. William had come arrogantly and left quietly. He did not bring a single cloud with him. Nobody knew how much delicious food the little witch beside him had taken away. Nobody knew what he had discussed with Caesar. Nobody knew either. After all, every power that came to attend Caesar's wedding had different needs and different ways of support. For example, the Eastern Federation Chamber of Commerce had given the president's daughter and money. They might have some support in terms of military strength, but not much. TSK. William sighed in his heart. He had never seen anyone who supported him so much. Even the little princess had been tricked by William with gifts and good looks. The Temple of Light and the Mercenary Guild had all sorts of support. If there was a conflict, they could only hold back the Magic Sanctuary and the Palace of Darkness. After all, unless it was a critical moment, the four major powers did not dare and did not want to participate in the succession of the human empire. They had to maintain their independence and status. What Caesar really needed to rely on were the major factions, the Dochi academies, and the many professionals who had pledged their allegiance to him. As for the fight between the two princes, most of the casualties were the professionals under Caesar. For a power representative like William, besides providing financial support, he also provided manpower. Otherwise, he would besiege the war-ending empire and attack the reinforcements. For example, the city of Dawn, which was also a neutral power, declared war on the Beast Castle, which supported the first prince. In the city of Dawn, there were small rivers, green grass, and endless trees. The terrain was built from low to high, all the way to the Blackleaf Forest. In this world, there was no need for greenery. William did not feel guilty about cutting down trees to expand the city's area. It cannot be helped. The legendary continent was too big, and there were not many people. Basically, there were only forests, grasslands, rivers, and lakes. So far, the City of Dawn had a population of 8 million civilians. Half of them were professionals. In 5 years, I want this city to have at least 5 million people. William hovered high above the City of Dawn and secretly decided on a goal. 5 million people was not considered a lot. But the City of Dawn did not need to rely on buying slaves to increase its population. Because in the southern region, the City of Dawn was definitely the largest neutral faction. Not to mention the treatment of professionals, the welfare of the commoners, and the comfortable standard of living were already miles ahead of the other kingdoms. There were countless commoners who wanted to settle down here. In addition, the Battle Energy Academy and Magic Academy were special. William's reputation over the years had allowed the City of Dawn's status in the southern region to rival that of the 3 big kingdoms. Therefore, the civilians who wanted to settle here now had to be at least beginner professions. William had told Sia about this. He wanted the land in the City of Dawn to be as expensive as gold. He had achieved his goal. Let me put it this way. If the commoners were all professionals, the greater the base number, the stronger the bloodline potential of the babies would be. Moreover, in the second year of the version update, the God's Continent would welcome the second mana revival. If everything goes according to plan, the bloodline of the commoners in the God's Continent will increase significantly after the mana awakening. 70%. Almost 70% of the commoners would have the aptitude to cultivate. By the time the third magic revival came, the humans of the God's Continent would basically have a beginner bloodline. Professionals who already had a good bloodline would even have their bloodline potential increased. From then on, there will be no more commoners in the God's world. All NPCs will have the aptitude to cultivate battle energy and magic. William took a deep breath. Oh, except for the orcs and small mermen. There would be a total of 3 mana revivals. Each time, the changes would be even more exaggerated and powerful. After the third mana revival, the average concentration of magic in the 9 continents would increase by nearly 100 times compared to the end of the third era. Among them, there would be frequent appearances of magical metal mines, magical stones, magical crystals, and various gemstone mines. The City of Dawn has to have a large population. We have to promulgate a welfare policy for more births. This way, we can keep up with the times and make the City of Dawn stronger. After a simple daydream, William handed over the idea to Odom. He was only responsible for the idea of the policy and publicity plan. The golden-haired dwarf was the person in charge. The prince of the Lonely Mountain Dwarf Empire had always wanted to restore his country. He always wanted the City of Dawn to become stronger so that it could help him restore his country. Subsequently, the prince went to the fortune-telling shop. When Moses became an epic professional, he also had the opportunity to break through. Now, he had become an all-round great enchanter. He was a true legend. In this way, as long as he did not reveal his identity and attract the attention of the magic sanctuary, the power of the City of Dawn would increase exponentially. In terms of safety, he would not have to fear the threat of any kingdom or high-end neutral camps. Creak. William pushed the door open and entered. The fortune-telling shop was the same as the first time he came. There were no changes. The crystal ball was placed on the shelf at the back. The interior of the shop was very simple, and there were no extravagant decorations. Moses sat lazily on the boss's chair and stroked his cat. If there was anything else, it would be the blood moon, which standing obediently at the side like a little maid. "Oh, my lord, what brings you here? Are you here to divine your fate or your future?" Moses said with a smile when he saw him enter. "You're treating me like an outsider." Prince William's heart trembled. He obediently picked up the chair and sat across from Emoji. Moses tapped the table with her slender fingers. She gave the blood moon witch a look, and the latter immediately said, "Lord, you once told a thunder professional called Thor that Moses is my woman." William's expression darkened. He slammed the table and pointed at the blood moon, which as he roared, "You can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. I kindly brought you to the wedding of the second prince of Zero War, so that you, A little princess who has been sealed for hundreds of years can have some good food. Now that you're treating me like this, my heart aches. My heart aches. That's all. I'm leaving. Goodbye." The prince was about to slip away. Moses waved her hand and signaled for the blood moon, which to leave. She smiled at William and said, "Why? How do you want her to treat you? Warm your bed?" "This? Of course not. I've been sleeping, eating, drinking, and growing up alone since I was young." William acted like a gentleman and shook his head hurriedly. "TSK, TSK. That's a dragon, not a half-elf. Or do you want me to warm your bed?" Moses's body underwent a drastic change as she spoke. Not only did her figure become curvaceous, but her face also gradually became feminine. She changed from a man in men's clothing to a woman who could cause the downfall of cities and countries. Her suffocating charm and confidence made people want to submit to her or conquer her. Hence, William stared blankly for a while. When his gaze swept to a certain spot, his pupils contracted slightly. He lowered his head and rubbed his hands anxiously. No one knew what he was thinking. It was possible to warm the bed, but William was definitely not that kind of person. "Even if you were a goddess, you could only warm my bed. Don't even think about touching a finger of mine." Moses did not know what William was thinking. Her mental fortitude was much stronger than William's. She leaned on the table and blinked her big bright eyes. She wanted to see what William was thinking. "Raise your head and speak. Am I not your woman? Why don't I have any masculinity? Where's the domineering aura that you had when you asked me for the soul magic inheritance?" "Yes, when you were an enchanter, I had," William muttered in his heart. Who knew that she would reveal her identity after becoming an enchanter? She had all the elements. The lord of the city of chaos was like a little brother compared to her. "Goddess, you could beat me with just a finger." How could William endure this? Fortunately, Moses did not continue teasing him. She smiled and said, "When did you discover that I'm the reincarnation of the goddess of magic?" William took a deep breath. He could not say that he discovered her from the first time he saw her. Sigh, but it was possible. He suddenly extended his hand and held Moses's small hand. He said lovingly, "From the first time I saw you." "Pa, this." William inhaled a breath of cold air. He had been slapped on his right arm. It was painful. "Tell me. I have long suspected that you are a close combat mage." "Damn it." Moses raised her eyebrows and said, "Tell me the truth." "Ahem, when we became devils and went to Moonlight Island, I had my suspicions. At that time, you were extremely disdainful of the Lord of Magic and had an indescribable feeling for the goddess of magic. In addition, you unintentionally said that you knew all the elements of magic and those magic scrolls. What happened next was more obvious. Because you and the thunder god knew each other, and you said many things that I didn't understand." William laughed dryly. Moses was not surprised. She nodded slightly and said, "That's right. You seem to have guessed it a long time ago. Now, I want you to do something for me. Can you do it? Speak. Take this list of materials and pass it to me after you buy them. I want to build a magic tower." "All right." William glanced at the list. His heart was bleeding. Even if he wanted to build 10 magic towers, he would build them for her. What was this? The goddess of magic had decided to settle down in the City of Dawn. She did not intend to seek revenge from the magic sanctuary. The most important thing was the construction of a magic tower meant that the City of Dawn had a legendary enchanter. A great enchanter that belonged to the City of Dawn. William slipped away very quickly. After Moses became a great enchanter, her strength seemed to have improved. She no longer hid her identity as a woman, but the relationship between them was not as good as before. After all, William was better at communicating with men. In his previous life, he had read too few books and only knew how to play games. But, long live single, long live underage, he did not have to worry about Caesar. He had a foot in 2 boats and did not know when he would fall. Chapter 434. Why would a great enchanter build a magic tower? There were many benefits. 1. In their own magic tower, the great enchanter could more easily sense the laws of heaven and earth. Their training speed would be faster. 2. Science and technology were the #1 productive force. Mages were the servants of truth. There would be many magic machines in the magic tower. It was enough for hundreds or even thousands of mages to conduct experiments and research. 3. The magic tower was very attractive to mages. If the city of Dawn had a magic tower, it would attract countless mages to come and worship it. It could even fool a few wild enchanters. 4. Increase Moses' personal strength. The stronger the magic tower, the greater the increase. Normally, it would cost about 20 million gold coins to build a magic tower. Most mages could afford it. It cannot be helped. Even the poorest great enchanter would have 20 million gold coins. They were big spenders, but their ability to earn money was not to be underestimated. Not to mention enchantment. Mages were also experts in making equipment. Even if they did not have money, as long as they relied on any force, someone would take the initiative to help them build a magic tower. But isn't this magic tower worth 60 million gold coins a little expensive? William looked at the materials on the purchase list. None of the materials were lower than epic quality. Just the 1,000 floating stones alone were worth 10 million gold coins. He had to use various methods to find the Seraphin before he could buy them. Obviously, Moses intended to build a magic tower that could fly. But William also discovered a problem. In his list of materials, not only were there no basic building materials, but there were also no core materials. Almost all of them were miscellaneous and very rare, but they could be bought. Gosh, just these items cost 60 million gold coins. How many billions is the total price? Besides, as the goddess of magic, how many good things did Moses prepare? Especially after she became a great enchanter. She did not inherit her inheritance. If she really dug up her own temple. TSK. That would be a huge profit. Moses did not want to build a magic tower. She wanted to build a divine weapon. William thought of this and could not help but swallow his saliva. It was obvious. Divine tools could be forged because no matter how powerful a weapon was, it was still created by intelligent beings. What was above the legendary level? Divine equipment equals sacred equipment. Next were the divine weapons. There were many kinds of artifacts. Aside from the artifacts from the mythological era, most of them were artifacts that could increase a person's combat power. Since the beginning of the First Era, most of the major races had created some strategic artifacts with all kinds of super functions. During the mythological era, most of the divine artifacts were owned by the Lord gods. Ordinary gods rarely owned divine artifacts. As for now, there were only a few who had divine artifacts. There was no other way. Too many years had passed since the mythological era to the Fourth Era. Basically, there would be a new divine artifact being born in every era. In addition, divine artifacts were very difficult to damage. Basically, as long as the race did not completely go extinct, the divine artifact would be preserved to this day. After all, no one said that only sovereigns could forge divine artifacts. One saint might not be able to forge a divine weapon, but with a few more saints, it would be done. One person's skills are limited, while two people's skills are strong. Many of the human race's divine artifacts were created at the end of the Second Era through the efforts of the human race. This was because the continents of the gods had not been separated at that time. This was because the humans of that era had overthrown the elves' rule and built a divine kingdom belonging to the humans, which was incomparably powerful. William took the matter very seriously when he thought of Seth's idea. He decided not to return to the extreme north for the time being. He wanted to personally help Seth purchase these rare materials. If possible, he wanted to buy the best materials that he could. He wanted to make sure that they were all of legendary quality. Although the extreme north is at war again, it's just a war of attrition. There are very few siege battles. It doesn't matter if I'm here or not. The other legions will continue to kill dark creatures to level up. The only legion that can attack the city is the Dragonblood Legion. With the help of the Space Enchanter, Old Band, I don't have to worry about the Dragonblood Legion being captured. William decided to give himself a break. As for Burn Cinder, Diablo, Violent Dragon, and the rest, they could fight there. To NPCs, only life and death battles could give them the most experience and growth. What about Annie? William wanted her to come back and rest, but this was a war between the elves. She was not a lazy person like William. So, As long as the Orc Empire was not destroyed, she would not come back to the City of Dawn to rest. Where should I go first? The Sky City? William raised his head and looked at the azure sky. I'll go look for Chien. She'll bring me to the Sky City to buy some levitating stones. William was about to look for the Winged People's District. He wanted to find the little angel who was resting in the City of Dawn. Suddenly, he felt a violent vibration. In the next moment, roar. The huge dragon's roar reverberated through the sky and throughout the entire City of Dawn. Countless citizens and professionals raised their heads and looked at the huge black dragon that had risen from the ground. Blackie. No. Sicario had revived. At this time, he had already transformed into a huge creature that was more than 30 meters long. His entire body was covered in ferocious, metallic black scales. He had 2 dragon horns that were slanted toward the sky. They seemed to have a sharp edge that could pierce through the sky. When he stretched out his wings, he was at least 70 to 80 meters long. He was very domineering. He was the Dusk Dragon. He was no longer the black puppy that followed behind Sir Lord's buttocks in the past. Many citizens were dumbfounded. They felt that the transformation was too drastic. It had only been 7 to 8 months. Even if the dragon race could consume potions and meat to increase their growth speed, it was still too fast to transform from a beginner dragon to an epic dragon. Many professionals who had some understanding of dragons wondered if His Royal Highness had fed him some kind of tonic. Sicario continued to roar. His roar was deafening. He soared in the sky of the City of Dawn. The shadows cast by his wings and the terrifying dragons might cause many civilians to hide in their houses in fear. Even many beginner and intermediate professionals could not stand the aura of the dragon's might. That was right. He was declaring his sovereignty and majesty. Blackie had changed. He had become very powerful. He felt that he was stronger than his previous master. So, the City of Dawn belonged to him. He was still happily thinking about it. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of him and mercilessly crushed his beautiful dream. When the huge black dragon saw the figure, he immediately braked in the sky. After all, the dragon race was not an airplane. The wings of the dragon race had magical properties, so they did not need to rely on the wind to fly. He saw William. That was right. It was this damn guy in front of him. Mother Asterisker. This guy has actually become an epic profession, and his aura doesn't seem to be much weaker than mine. Casario's golden pupils constricted slightly. He seemed to be considering if he should turn the situation around and become the master. But when he saw William's sincere gaze, his gentle smile, and his handsome face, he could not help but sigh. He seemed to think of something. That was right. It was this man who had given him a treasure that allowed him to break through continuously. It seemed like he could endure it for a while and wait for him to bring him more treasures. After he became the most powerful dragon, it wouldn't be a bad idea to swallow him in one gulp. Well, he was quite nice to him. Even if he didn't swallow him, he could keep this guy as a slave. Howl! Xiao He roared at William, as if to say, "Get out of my way. I've been cooped up in the egg for so long. It's not easy for me to come out for a breather, and you're still blocking my way? Stop yelling. Speak human language." A voice suddenly rang out from the depths of Little Black's heart. At this moment, this dusk dragon, named Sicario, once again felt the fear of being controlled by a soul. Are you so arrogant now that you've become an epic great dragon? William narrowed his eyes and was about to fly over and ride him. When Sicario saw that someone wanted to ride him, he naturally didn't want to. He immediately used his golden pupils to closely observe William's actions. Presumptuous. You want to ride me? Impossible. Keep your daydreaming. Even if I'm soul-controlled, I can't let a half-elf ride me. When William saw Sicario's reaction, he used a seductive tone to paint a beautiful picture. Do you still want to break through and become stronger? Do you really want to sleep for thousands of years before becoming a legendary great dragon? The dusk dragon hesitated for a while and asked, "When will you have more treasures?" "I'll have them soon. Come, let me ride you first." "No, you have to give me an accurate time. I'll ride you first. I'll go down immediately." "I don't believe you." Sicario shook his big head. He was unwilling. It was certain that he was unwilling. There was a very narrow spot on the dragon's neck. It was between two dragon scales, and it was just enough to fit two legs. This spot was called the dragon tooth platform. As long as one sat in this position, it meant that one would become the dragon knight of this dragon. But it was not easy to do so. It was useless to forcefully sit on it. The dragon had to approve of one before the soul fusion could be carried out. Only then could one unleash the strongest combat power of the dragon and man. As for the so-called dragon knight, dragon warrior, who stood on the dragon's back, it was useless. It was better to fight on his own. But William didn't intend to use force. He also didn't have the mood to use soul controlling. Because Little Black had become very strong, William couldn't use the same method that he used to torture Little Black when he was young. So he started a war of words with Little Black. After more than half an hour and agreeing to a bunch of impossible conditions, Little Black finally agreed to let him sit for a while. Just for a while. So William slowly flew over and stretched out his hand to caress the scales on the dragon's neck. They were hard, full of toughness, and rich magical elements. They were enough to withstand unimaginable attacks. But Little Black shook his head uneasily. He seemed to feel the aura on William's hand, because his indestructible dragon scales couldn't withstand the attack of the hand of God. Then William suddenly flipped over. He sat down on the dragon tooth platform and inserted his legs into the scales that were blocking the platform. At that moment, the feeling of the soul fusion appeared. Lines of information appeared on William's interface. That was right. The dragon and man became one. When William used soul magic to control Little Black, he had already completed the most difficult step. So at this second, he became a real dragon knight. Powerful, an unparalleled sense of power. Chapter 435. How much had the Twilight Dragon evolved from beginner to epic? He had to open his attribute panel to take a look. Sicario, legendary. Race, Twilight Dragon level. 143 position level. Epic endowment. Adult Dragon Bite endowment. Adult Dragon Roar endowment. Adult Dragon Breath. Dual Fire and Thunder elements endowment. Twilight Dragon Life. Each point of physical strength equals 200 health points. Endowment. Power of the Twilight Dragon. Each point of strength equals 150 endurance. Endowment. Scales of the Twilight Dragon. Each point of physical strength equals 8 defense and an additional 3,000 defense. The maximum health points is increased by 30,000. You have 60% resistance to dual thunder and fire element damage. All damage dealt by the enemy, excluding true damage, will be reduced by an additional 20%. Endowment. Giant Dragon Physique. You have extraordinary physique and vitality. The true damage dealt by the enemy will be reduced by 50%. Your health points will recover at an additional 300%. Endowment. Thunder and Fire Dragon Language. Endowment. Thunder and Fire Domain. Endowment. Health points. 948000 endurance points, 684540 power, 3803 physical strength, 4590 agility, 2633 intelligence, 1222 includes bloodline bonus. Both of them had just reached the epic level. The Twilight Dragon had close to 1,000,000 health points. Its strength was thousands of points higher than William's. Its physical strength was even higher than William's. William's epic 1 point of physical strength equals 120 health points, but the Twilight Dragon's 1 point of physical strength equals 200 health points. The difference was huge. He had a lot of endowments. There were a total of 18 endowments. However, the most surprising thing was that Sicario was a dual elemental dragon of fire and lightning. William had mentioned before that the Twilight Dragon had 2 attributes. The first attribute was innately awakened, and the second attribute was acquired. William did not know if the Twilight Dragon had awakened the Thunder attribute because he had adopted it, but it was precisely because of this dragon's endowment that he could feel the infinite power of becoming one with the dragon. Because the moment he rode on the Dragon Tooth platform, he had activated his endowment. Endowment, Twilight Dragon Knight. You have become one with the Twilight Dragon. You can control the giant dragon as if it is your own body. Your four-dimensional attributes will increase by 30%. Your attack power will increase by 50%. Your attack range has increased by 30%. You and the Dusk Dragon share the same thunder attribute. Your thunder attribute will be increased by 50%. When you ride the Dusk Dragon, you and the Dusk Dragon will share the same HP and regeneration rate. You will also gain an additional 2,000 defense. You will share your vision. Each of your attacks will be accompanied by the effect of Dragon's Might. Mental intimidation, restriction. You must sit on the Dragon 2 stage in order to use this talent. What is a mount? This is a mount. William laughed loudly. In his heart, he shouted, "Charge!" Bang! The sound of the explosion resounded through the sky. The Dusk Dragon had no intention of refusing. This was because it could also feel the power of this fusion. This kind of feeling that people yearned for even in their dreams also made it want to fly freely. This 30-meter-long giant dragon instantly burst forth with supersonic speed. Accompanied by the light of thunder and fire, it streaked across the sky and flew far away in the blink of an eye. William wielded his thunder cleave and unleashed a sword light that was hundreds of meters long. It swept in all directions, and lightning flashed in the sky. Blackie seemed to have sensed William's excitement. It also spat out a dragon's breath that was thousands of meters long. Thunder and fire intertwined. The dragon's tongue magic formed a fire and thunder tornado that seemed to engulf the endless sea of clouds. Holy sh*T, this feeling is too good. William continuously slashed with his sword dozens of times. Not only did he not feel tired, but he also felt that he had too much battle energy and was too full of himself. The prince sighed inwardly. The Dragon Knights are truly blessed by the heavens. If it weren't for the fact that dragons naturally hate humans and the fact that human empires like to slay dragons, there wouldn't be so few Dragon Knights in the world of gods. But then again, even though the Dragon Knights are strong and suitable to be the leader of the Legion, they are not suitable to fight with top professionals. William could control the Dusk Dragon and had Blackie's vision. It was equivalent to two people fighting. The dragon race's endurance and explosive power were excellent, but their explosive speed was slower than the top professionals, and their agility was far from enough. Therefore, the Dragon Knights were not invincible. Even if William rode the dragon, he would not be able to defeat a top epic like Thunder God Thor. This was because Thor was faster than the Dusk Dragon, but Thor would not be able to defeat him. Because his and the Dusk Dragon's health points were combined, they shared the same health points recovery speed. TSK. More than 1 million health points. William and the Dusk Dragon had thick skin and flesh. The enemy's attacks were like tickles to them. As a Dragon Knight, the back of the Great Dragon was not a weakness. Yes, can the 4% health points recovery from the Heart of Thunder be used on this? William's eyes suddenly lit up. If this endowment was effective. How much was 4% of 1 million health points? 44,000 health points. Therefore, His Royal Highness stabbed himself with a knife. It was not effective. He could only recover 4% of his maximum health points. This was considered nothing compared to his total health points of 1 million. But even so, it was quite insane. Basically, as long as I ride the dragon, I could do whatever I want in the epic level, except for the legendary bosses. William could not help but laugh wildly. Many civilians and professionals in the City of Dawn were frightened. After all, his laughter was too insane. It was too arrogant. It made him feel as if he was invincible. I'm not invincible, but I'll be arrogant for once. Let's go out for a walk. William patted the hard scales of the Dusk Dragon. The Black Dragon roared in a low voice. Roar once again. The Dusk Dragon accelerated and flew into the distance. They were flying at a low altitude. The Great Dragon's roar and the dragon's might scared many magical beasts and animals. Some passing merchants saw this scene and almost peed in their pants. But when they saw a human sitting on the neck of the huge Black Dragon, they widened their eyes and exclaimed in surprise, "Dragon Knight! Dragon Knight! Dragon Knight!" The news that the Lord of the City of Dawn had become a dragon knight spread throughout the southern region in a short period of time. He rode the Dusk Dragon and flew for half a day to the Black Lava Dukedom, Emerald Grand Duchy, and even to the airspace of the Lion Kingdom. He greeted a group of Griffin riders who heard the news. After William left on the Dusk Dragon, dozens of Griffin riders fell from the sky. They were dumbfounded. William controlled the Dusk Dragon and did not deliberately release the dragon's might. It had to be said, many of the southern region's factions and professionals were jealous. They were even more jealous than lemons. They were thinking, does the City of Dawn have any shame? Especially William Blackleaf, the Lord of the City of Dawn. Don't you know what's going on? How many dragons have you killed? Do you dare to tell us? The City of Dawn is so arrogant in the extreme north. Isn't it because of the Dragonblood Legion? In the end, the City of Dawn was favored by the great dragons and became a dragon knight. Wasn't that too much of a blessing? But more importantly, this giant dragon with pitch-black scales all over its body was not a black dragon. It was a fire and thunder dragon. The asterisk M in it. Comparisons were odious. This dragon was not a normal elemental dragon, nor was it a metal dragon. It could even be an ancient species. According to historical records, during the First Era when the dragons ruled the world, there were many species of dragons. They were not as rare as they were now. One of the most important points was that conquering a dragon was far more difficult than killing one, not to mention the difficulty of finding a young dragon. Because the legendary great dragons protected the young dragons, it was not easy for adventurers to obtain young dragons. Moreover, it was clear how William had subdued Blackleaf. William had used soul control on Blackleaf from the day it was born. But even with soul control, Blackleaf was still rebellious and rebellious. If Blackleaf had not been beaten up, given a red date, and fed with the blood dragon crystal, it would not have fully acknowledged William. William had also said that even if one forcefully rode on the Dragon Tooth platform, one would not become a dragon knight. Because great dragons had soul inheritance, they naturally thought that humans were inferior creatures. If they did not acknowledge you, you would not have the chance to become a dragon knight. Rather die than submit was not just a saying. Most great dragons had such a personality. Human empires also had dragon knights, but there were not many of them. Oh, but he knew that there was a human empire in the western continent that had a dragon knight legion, but most of the mounts of these dragon knights were the Kinder metal dragons. Besides the gold and silver dragons, the other metal dragons had low combat power. So no matter what, the news that William had become a dragon knight shocked the entire southern region. In a legendary southern region where there were no human empires, the City of Dawn was like a miracle. Every 1 or 2 years, there would be big news. Meanwhile, William also announced that the City of Dawn would be building a magic tower. This news spread like wildfire. Instantly, the magical professionals in the southern region were excited. How many great enchanters were there in the southern region? Besides the kingdoms, the 4 major powers, the elves, the dwarfs, and the half-elves, there were no neutral powers that had great enchanters. The great enchanters of Serafkin were all in the Sky City. Now that the City of Dawn had officially announced the arrival of great enchanters, the magical professionals were ecstatic. In addition, the City of Dawn treated the magical professionals well and had few restrictions. Many magical professionals wanted to come to the City of Dawn on a pilgrimage. There were grand mage sages in the legendary continent, but not every magical professional had the opportunity to come into contact with them. The great enchanters were the goal that many magical professionals looked up to and pursued. William did not know if there would be enchanters coming to join him. But with his current reputation in the City of Dawn, there might be enchanters coming to join him. At the same time, the reputation of the City of Dawn continued to rise. William had left the City of Dawn. He and Chien had passed through the light beam and flew to the Sky City that was hidden in the clouds. He wanted to take a look. It was the Cloud Sea paradise that had not fallen since the First Era. He wanted to take another look. It was the Serafkin world that had tens of millions of angels. The angels were evolved forms of the Serafkin. The difference between the two was obvious. One lived in the sky. The other lived on the ground. Chapter 436. The The Sky City of the Winged People did not have a teleportation formation. If one wanted to go to the Sky City without a way to communicate with them, even the sages would have to search for a long time before they could discover the constantly moving, floating island. The Sky City did not have a teleportation formation, but it had a space tunnel that connected to the Sky City. It was like a guiding light. It was very magical. Basically, no matter where one was, as long as one could contact the Sky City and gain its approval, a guiding light would teleport them away. To many angels, this was like a ray of light that could save their lives. What was even more impressive was that this guiding light could split into 100,000 beams and teleport millions of people. It was obvious. This was one of the strategic artifacts of the Winged People. It would attack wherever it was pointed. It had the ability to instantly deploy the entire God's continent. Meanwhile, this huge super sky city had the ability to teleport. However, it consumed a lot of energy, so it was rarely used. In his previous life, William had only seen it once. It was when it destroyed the imperial city of a human empire. William and Xian flew all the way until they reached a boundless sea of clouds. Xian, who was wearing a silver battle dress, extended her hand and shot out a ray of holy light. Then, just like that, he waited quietly. William did not ask any questions. It was very simple. If the Sky City did not pursue its mysteriousness, it could be summoned on the ground. Yes, it could be treated as a rainbow bridge, but it was not as awesome as the Rainbow Bridge. However, Sky City reacted very quickly. It did not even take a few breaths. A ray of holy light engulfed them from the sky. In the next second, both of them seemed to have entered a space tunnel. It gave off a different feeling. It was as if they could see the scenery outside. However, the speed was too fast. It was so fast that they could not tell if they were in a space tunnel or in a light beam. Not long after, William lost his sense of time and space. He closed his eyes and opened them again. The world in front of him had changed. Countless white pigeons, no. There were a lot of angels with white, feathered wings. The Sky City. This city was built on a huge island. Xian thought that it was William's first time here. She proudly pointed at the 9 tall mountains in front of them and said respectfully, "These 9 mountains are called Empyrean Peaks." There was a holy angel of the winged race living on every mountain peak. They are ancient and great. His lifespan was so long that people could only look up to him. They are the ancestors of the Harpies. Among them, the holy angel Michael, who was on the highest peak in the middle, was also known as the divine angel. Not only did he build the Sky City, but he was also known as the angel closest to the Lord God. Angel Megala was first born in the mythological era. It is because of him that we Harpies are where we are today. William glanced at Xian, who was like a fanatic. He felt that the brainwashing technique of the Seraphin was working. The holy angels on the 9 mountains were saints. Of course, the winged race didn't only have these 9 saints, but these 9 angels were the most powerful saints of the winged race. But it was a bit far-fetched to say that Megwalo was the saint closest to the Lord God. The emperor of the Brilliance Divine Palace had already become a super powerful person at the level of the Lord God. He was waiting for someone to seek trouble with him so that he could establish his dominance. The prince looked around. There were many white buildings on the 9 peaks, and high-level angels lived in them. Most of the legendary and epic angels lived on the 9 peaks. Next was the huge angel city at the foot of the 9 peaks. Tens of millions of advanced and grandmaster angels lived there. William followed the little angel as they flew forward. After entering the huge angel city, they took 7 or 8 turns in the city before returning to the original path. He could not help but ask, "How many times have you been to the Sky City? Do you know the way?" Xian blushed, and her eyes were hazy, but she still wore a serious expression and said, "Just follow me. Don't you want to buy levitating stones? Even if I get lost, I'm still better than you." "Better than me? I saw the diplomatic palace just now." The corners of William's mouth twitched. He had been to the Sky City more than Xian. This was because Xian had only been to the Sky City twice. She had broken through to the advanced and grandmaster levels once. She spent the rest of her time in the City of Dawn, leading the winged tribe that had raised her. She also prevented the winged people from being bullied in the City of Dawn. It had to be said, there were very few angels who were determined to leave the Sky City and return to their homeland. Most of the winged people who had broken through to the advanced level and became angels would choose to stay in the Sky City forever. This was because it represented glory and a future. As for the other winged people, with the soul inheritance and the constant brainwashing of the angels, the winged people would support them. William did not expose her. He continued to wander around with the little angel. He looked at the surrounding scenery and tried to recall his past memories. Suddenly, he lifted his head and looked at the sky. The height of the Sky City was beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Above his head was a deep blue sky, and the sea of stars was faintly discernible. It was as if the Sky City had broken through the atmosphere. But he had become an epic professional, so he did not feel any difficulty breathing. But he felt that something was not right about this height. At this height, the Sky City seemed to be very close to the moon. Were the winged people collaborating with the aliens? William pondered for a while and followed Cheyenne around. He did not attract too much attention from the angels, because the Sky City did not prohibit outsiders from entering. But they were not allowed to stay for a long time, and they did not have angel cards. Therefore, it was impossible for them to stay here permanently, unless they could grow a pair of wings. Time passed. Cheyenne could not stand it anymore. She stopped a male angel and asked in a deep voice, "My friend behind me wants to buy a floating stone. Do you know where to go?" The male angel was only an advanced angel. He gazed deeply at Cheyenne and made way for her. He pointed behind him and said, "Behind you." Swish! The little angel, Cheyenne, disappeared like a wisp of smoke. She did not dare to meet anyone. William shrugged and said, "Sorry, her eyes are not good. It's all right. There are too many women who greet me by asking for directions." The male angel proudly shrugged and turned to leave. William tilted his head. He was in disbelief. Who gave the angel the courage to think that he was handsome in front of him? She flew to the side of another male angel and held his hand as they flew away. Only then did he reveal an expression of sudden realization. Cheyenne led William to the entrance of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But when they entered, it was a different world. It was obvious that this was an alternate dimension. In this hall, William saw many humans, elves, dwarves, and even mere folk with gills behind their ears. They looked similar to humans, but William did not know where they came from. The business of the Sky City was handled by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The transaction method was simple. You would take out your space ring and let me take a look at it. I would take out my space ring and let you take a look at it. As long as the quantity and quality were good enough, you would exchange your space ring. The grand but dirty ceremony would be completed. So when you came here, it was best to use a space ring of the right size. Otherwise, it would be a loss. Cheyenne looked around in confusion. William patted her head and said, "I'll queue up at the transaction window. Wait for me here." "Oh." The little angel glanced at the transaction windows and did not speak. It could not be helped. Besides fighting and training, she did not know anything about these things. Half an hour later, he bought 1,000 levitating stones. But when he returned, he discovered that Cheyenne had disappeared. Even if the little angel left, there's no reason for her not to inform me. William was taken aback. Just as he was about to transmit a message to Cheyenne, she suddenly appeared and anxiously pulled his arm out. William's expression changed. What was going on? He had bought some floating stones, and the gold coins were not mixed with copper. Did someone want to kill him? Did he take out the wrong gold coins? Gosh, was the deputy city lord Odom trying to kill him so that he could usurp the throne? Cheyenne did not know what William was thinking. She said, "Follow me to the conference hall." You came at the right time. The representatives of the 7 continents are having a meeting here. 7 continents meeting? William's eyes lit up. The Serafkin had a good reputation as a neutral faction before the Serafkin started a war with the other races. The large-scale meetings of the 7 continents would be held in the Sky City. It was especially convenient to discuss the tractor beams. Of course, the discussions were useless. It had nothing to do with William. Because he was a chosen one, he could not enter the meeting, but since he was here and Xian seemed to be able to bring him to the meeting, he had to go and listen. He should be able to find out the general direction of future development. They flew all the way and soon arrived at the large conference hall that the Seraphin had prepared for the various powers. There were 2 and 4 battle angels guarding the door. They stopped many humans and elves. When they saw that Xian was a battle angel, they did not stop her. William followed her in. They entered from the side door and came to the back of the conference hall. They hid behind a pillar. There were many people behind the pillars. However, they were in a trance. It sounded like a market. Hundreds of legendary big shots were sitting in front of them. Their saliva was flying everywhere. Many of them were rolling up their sleeves and glaring at them. It seemed like they were ready to fight. The Seraphin sage on the rostrum was resting with his eyes closed. He could not be bothered to speak. Hence, William witnessed a rare war of words between legendary big shots. Shut up. The 4th era has begun. The tectonic plates of the 9 continents have started to move slowly. Are you still discussing how to move the marine creatures in the middle? Shouldn't you consider the consequences of the collision of the continents? This was a legendary dwarf who wasn't short. He was 6 meters tall. But the female sea race big shot who raised the suggestion replied, "It's everyone's responsibility to protect the marine creatures. They are in the middle of the 9 continents. The gods' continents were separated because of war. Many marine creatures died. Are the continents going to reunite? Are we going to let the marine creatures die? The marine creatures are a small problem. The consequences of the reunification of the 9 continents are too great. How are we going to distribute the resources? Should we start a small-scale war and let billions of people die?" An elf with pointy ears glanced at the legendary human professional and sneered. "You humans can die. We elves are not interested. The reunification of the 9 continents will result in war. Since we don't want to suffer too many losses, we have to clear out some remote areas and divide them into battlefields." That's right. Now, everyone should take out a list of kingdoms and neutral powers to abandon, especially those that are close to the borders of the continents. Don't care what race they are. If you don't want to sacrifice them, then move them away in the next few years. We'll talk about this later. What about the darkness invasion 5 years later? Hundreds of millions of humans have died. Are you going to sit back and do nothing? Didn't that guy just say that billions of human beings should die first? Why should we care about that? If that's the case, don't blame us for being too ruthless. Who's afraid of who? You came from the central continent to the western continent to fight me. Come on. Come on, let's fight outside. I'm not convinced. Our dragon race will start a war in a few years. We have to start a war. Otherwise, we can't suppress the resentment of our people. Fight. But can you not eliminate the effects of the dragon blood? Impossible. If it weren't for the humans, why would the dragon race start a war? Then don't start a war. I'm afraid that the dragon race will suffer heavy losses. The dragon race is, the humans are the current masters. Don't mention the past. The war of words was rather intense, but everyone was still courteously pointing at each other. It had not reached the stage of fighting. It was a conference between the 7 continents. There were too many representatives. Basically, all the powers with sages would send a legendary professional to communicate. They would let them quarrel for a few days. They would determine the general direction of the conference. Finally, the sages would decide the outcome of the conference. William could not imagine that the super missions that he had experienced in the past were the outcome of such a conference. The representatives of the major powers seemed to know when the darkness invasion would start. They also knew the start of the Great Dragon Rebellion. William suddenly felt that his entire life was in a trance. MMP. It turned out that his status was too low. He was like an actor in a drama. His life and death were decided by them. He had been too simple-minded back then. However, he was still taken aback. So, the Harpies want to become the ruler of the continent and destroy a human empire? Do they have a plan in mind? William raised his eyebrows. That was not the case, because he realized that the things that these people were discussing would not determine the life and death of certain sages. This meant that only the missions that determined the life and death of the sages were random. TSK. Those who are not sages are insignificant. William shrugged his shoulders. He was not emotional. He just wanted to listen carefully and see if he could find any information about the missions. Chapter 437. The Conference of the Seven Continents lasted for 3 days. The legendary big shots did not need to rest, eat, or drink. They worked for 72 hours straight from the first day to the last. Finally, the preliminary conference came to an end because the time was up. The Saint of the Feather Race came and left with his eyes closed. One could totally imagine how torturous this meeting was for him. There were a few general directions for the conference. It was not yet certain whether the other races would help to resist the darkness invasion 5 years later. The chaos of the dragon race would definitely happen. The human empires would provide a list of unlucky forces for the dragon race to kill to appease their anger. What was this called? The human empires slaughtered the dragons, but the human kingdoms and grand duchies had to pay the bill. At the same time, how should the various continents deal with the Orc Empire? They could fight and kill, but they could not kill all of them. They had to prevent the Orc Saints from taking revenge, even if they perished together. They also provided some information about the number of reincarnations of the gods. There were about 183 suspects of the reincarnations of the gods in the 7 continents. As for how many had not been discovered, it was hard to say. However, they did not propose how to deal with the reincarnations of the gods. They must have had a plan. As for saving the marine creatures, sorry, that did not exist. If the sea folk did not want too many marine creatures to die, go and save them yourself. In the end, the problem of the chosen ones was brought up to the table by the big shots, and they discussed it for a long time. However, most of the legendary big shots were skeptical about the appearance of the chosen ones. They did not intend to recruit them directly. That was because they did not think that the chosen ones were created by the heavens. Instead, they were believers summoned by the lords of the divine realm from their respective divine realms. In particular, the chosen ones could not die and could be resurrected. In addition, the players had a special way of contacting each other. They could disappear or appear together. This made everyone worried that the chosen ones were a conspiracy of the gods. Of course, there were people who did not agree with these thoughts. Therefore, the legendary big shots attitude towards the chosen ones was to continue to let them grow. Although the chosen ones grew quickly, their strength was generally low and their fighting was very poor. As long as there were no saints among them, nothing would be a problem. It did not matter how many there were. Anyway, in this meeting, not only did William hear a lot of information about the future missions, but he also deeply felt the power of the humans, elves, and winged people. Many of the versions of the missions that he had experienced back then were basically all planned out by them. However, there was one thing that was very important. These big shots were all very worried about the future arrival of the gods. There was no need to mention the ordinary gods. They were all on the same level, and the sages were not weaker than them, and there were more of them. But there were still some sovereigns who hadn't died. This was the sky above their heads. If these insufferably powerful main gods were to break through the barrier that sealed them and descend upon the gods' continent, the main gods would not be able to do anything to them. Regardless of whether it was the dragon race, elves, humans, dwarves, or the winged race, none of them had a good way to deal with it. Every time they talked about this, they would hesitate. There are many unscrupulous people involved. William sighed. He had already left the conference hall. The Fourth Era had welcomed the players, the darkness invasion, and the arrival of the gods. However, the major races were still thinking about their own interests. Basically, they were all playing their own games, hoping that the others would be unlucky and be exterminated. This situation made His Royal Highness sigh. But who wasn't? It was the estrangement between the major powers. It was needless to say between the races. The foreign races could never be trusted. This was the truth. All intelligent creatures were selfish. The weak were for themselves. The strong were for their families. The sages were for their races. If the major races did not feel like the end of the world was coming, the scheming would probably continue until the end of time. Xian suddenly looked at William. This young man was very handsome, and he was very good-looking. Almost all female creatures, regardless of their race, would have a good impression of him. But this was not the most important thing. She was just curious about William's charisma. How could he make the city of Dawn so peaceful? It was simply unimaginable. According to the records of the gods' era, even during the era of the gods, the various intelligent races were still in constant conflict. Cities with mixed populations would often have all sorts of conflicts and chaos. For a neutral camp like the City of Dawn, even if the main gods ordered them to intervene, it would be useless. But both of them were thinking about their own matters. They did not tell each other what was on their minds. At this moment, William saw an old acquaintance walking towards him. Cassini. He was the current city lord of the Beast Castle. William pondered for a while. He did not see Cassini in the conference hall. In other words, he had come to the Sky City for a transaction. Prince William, we are fated. We first met at the Temple of Light. This should be the second time we meet in the Sky City. Cassini was a supporter of the first prince, but he was a businessman. Even if William supported the second prince, Caesar, it would not affect their business. If he could, he would. William smiled. So it's Lord Cassini. It's been a long time since we last met. Why do you have the time to come here? I'm here to buy some good stuff. The Serafkin are the top neutral camp in the Gods continent. They are the commercial center of the 7 continents. Many rare materials have to be bought here. Cassini did not say what he wanted to buy, but from his distressed expression, it was obvious that it was not a cheap treasure. Then he smiled and said, "The City of Dawn has been buying various kinds of magical beasts. It seems that Prince William has made a fortune from the war in the extreme north. Are you interested in higher-level magical beasts?" Higher-level magical beasts? That should be harder to control. William raised his eyebrows. He did not refuse and seemed to be considering it. Cassini's eyes lit up. The beast-taming citadel had recently obtained a group of difficult dragon beasts. Because they had too much dragon blood in their bodies, they could easily go berserk. Not only did the beastmasters not care about them, but they also injured many beastmasters. If they did not make a move when they reached adulthood, they would rot at home. So he laughed. "Prince William, you must be joking. Everyone knows that the Lord of Dawn has become a dragon knight. He can even tame a dragon, let alone a magical beast." This sentence seemed to be very pleasing to the ear. William smiled and did not explain. In fact, Cassini was also very worried. He had inherited his father's position. Not only did he have 3 legendary dragons at home, but he also had good relations with many other dragons. But there was not a single dragon for him to ride. But now is not the time to be envious. He quickly said, 5,000 forest dragon wolves. They are large, fast, and have scales on their bodies. Their defense is very high, and they also have wind elements. Name a price, and I will sell them to you cheaply. How about that? 5,000 forest dragon wolves, the offspring of a wind dragon? That's right. You know what an elemental dragon is like. They won't let go of any opportunity. Not interested. William shrugged. Cassini's mouth twitched. Don't. Think about it. 8,000 gold coins per wolf. I'm only interested in dragons now. The prince had a disdainful expression. He turned around and was about to pull Sheehan away. Cassini took a deep breath. He looked at William's back thoughtfully. Could it be that William had a way to ride a dragon? He pondered for a long time and quickly chased after William. "What kind of dragon do you want?" William looked at him in shock and said with fiery eyes, "The beast-taming citadel dares to sell young dragons." Cassini looked around and pulled William to a secluded place. He said in a deep voice, "If you dare to buy, I will dare to sell. What kind of dragons do you have?" "For now, we only have the young emerald dragon and the eggs of a fire elemental dragon." "How much for the eggs of a fire elemental dragon?" William did not ask about the origin of the eggs because Cassini would not tell him. At this point, Cassini could confirm one thing. William seemed to have a way to become a dragon knight because he did not ask about the emerald dragon, which was easier to deal with. Instead, he asked about the elemental dragons, which no one else had any interest in. Elemental dragons were stronger, especially the fire dragons. In fact, he had thought of some methods. For example, soul magic. But it was useless, because the dragons that were soul-controlled would not submit to him. They would rather die than submit. And so, Cassini silently raised a finger. 100 million gold coins? William raised his eyebrows. Cassini nodded. That's right. The price is fair. If it's an emerald dragon, it's worth at least 200 million gold coins or equivalent magical crystals and magical stones. After all, the eggs of an elemental dragon are still dragons. Even if you can't control them, you can raise them and kill them. If the Lord of the City of Dawn wants to buy them, I can give you the rest of the dragon wolves as accessories. It's the benefit of our many years of trade. The eggs of an elemental dragon were stolen. As the Lord of the Beast Citadel, he thought that he was the most familiar with the dragon race. He knew the habits of the dragon race very well. This was the foundation of the Beast Citadel. In addition, he had the power of an epic. It was not impossible to steal the eggs of a dragon, but very few people bought the eggs of an elemental dragon. They were afraid of revenge if they were discovered. Elemental dragons were not used to being kept in captivity. Even if they were successfully hatched, they would starve to death. But since the Lord of the City of Dawn had become a dragon knight, there seemed to be a way to tame this dragon. Moreover, Cannell had been at the epic level for decades. In order to become stronger, he had spent billions of gold coins to achieve his near-impossible dream. So he needed to earn some gold coins to recover. He did not care if William was a supporter of Caesar. He was not interested in asking for too much. After William entered the palace, he fought with Thor, who was on good terms with Caesar. William destroyed most of Caesar's palaces. Perhaps his relationship with Caesar was not that good. Hence, William pondered for a full 3 minutes before he made up his mind. He said in a deep voice, "I'll buy it. Bring your men to the City of Dawn. I'll deliver the goods at the same time." Okay. Cannell clapped his hands in delight. This way, he would have more money to complete his dream of becoming a god. That was right. Cannell had caught a newborn natural god. His goal was to transform himself into a natural god. If he succeeded, he would become the strongest person in this world. Chapter 438. William did not intend to attack the Beastmaster Citadel so soon. However, the two of them ran into each other again. Cannell was shamelessly trying to sell William's items. William used the dragon method to reject Cannell's offer. However, Cannell seemed to be really poor. He dared to sell dragon eggs to William. William stroked his chin thoughtfully. Interesting. What has Cannell been up to recently? Logically speaking, the Beastmaster Citadel, which had been a neutral force for hundreds of years, should have more funds than the City of Dawn. Cannell was a realm warrior and beast tamer. Even if he could produce 10 sets of legendary equipment, he would not need to spend so much money. But recently, he's been selling dragon eggs everywhere. No matter how I look at it, he's a little poor. William could not figure out what Cannell was up to, but he could guess that it was Cannell's secret plan that almost bankrupted the Beastmaster Citadel. 5 years later, they dared to sell dragon eggs to the players. Subsequently, William continued to purchase materials for the construction of the Magic Tower. After all, it would take at least half a month for the transaction to take place. The Beastmaster Citadel was located in the eastern magical beast forest. This vast and boundless green forest was rich in natural resources and mineral veins. In addition, there were countless magical beasts, giant dragons, and a super magical animal, the phoenix. The eastern magical beast forest occupied a quarter of the eastern region. It was bordered by the war-ending empire, the East Sea Kingdom, and the Sabate Kingdom. This dense magical beast forest was a treasure trove for adventurers in the eastern region. It was also a prosperous land for the Beastmaster Citadel. It had to be known. Without the elven forest, this place would be the habitat of magical beasts, giant dragons, half-elves, and the winged race. As for humans, whether they were professionals or not, they were not suited to live in dense forests. Because human professionals were naturally at a disadvantage when facing magical beasts. A magical beast usually required many professionals of the same level to face. However, the Beastmaster Citadel was an exception. Cannell's father, the first lord of the Beastmaster Citadel, was a grand magus who had been cultivating for 30 years. On top of that, he was also a beastmaster, so he was able to build a huge citadel in this forest where humans couldn't live for a long time. He gradually nurtured many beast tamers and even hooked up with 3 legendary giant dragons. This was how the Beastmaster's citadel became a large neutral force and became famous in the legendary continent. Beastmaster's citadel, located in the southeastern part of the magical Beast Forest. It had a population of over 2 million and an army of 300,000. Among them, 100,000 all had magical beast mounts, and their strength was unfathomable. As for the Beastmaster division, there were 50,000 of them, all under Cannel's personal command. It was also these Beastmasters who had provided over 1 million magical beasts to many kingdoms and empires over the centuries. Not only did Beastmasters know how to breed, train, and capture magical beasts, but they were also proficient in hybridization techniques. These hybridized magical beasts usually didn't have the ability to reproduce, but they were docile, had pleasant appearances, and had different abilities. They could often be sold to nobles as mounts. In short, the Citadel was a place where humans and beasts coexisted. Although incidents of demonic beasts injuring and eating humans were common occurrences in the Citadel, the profits were simply too great. Outside of the Beastmasters, the army, and the civilians, there was no one who could survive. It even gave rise to a new profession, Beastcatcher. This was a group of mercenaries and adventurers. They lived at the Citadel all year round and specialized in capturing young beasts to sell to the Citadel for money. Selling live young beasts to Beastmasters at the Citadel was a great way to make money. As long as these beast catchers dared to take the risk and enter the forest a few times, they would be able to earn quite a bit of money. The Citadel had been operating this way for many years. Moreover, the City Lord recently announced that he wanted to purchase young beasts on a large scale. Thus, many more professionals came to the Citadel. And recently, there was a beast catcher group called the Chao-Kai Beast Catcher Group that became famous in the Citadel. This was because they captured more than 30 fire-type, dragon-blooded moths in one go. Originally, these moths were only a group of magical beasts with the body of a horse and the claws of tiger. However, due to the nature of the dragon race, they now had another characteristic. They had dragon scales on their bodies and could breathe fire. Moreover, they had naturally bred more than 30 of them. There was no doubt about it. These naturally bred, dragon-blooded moths were extremely valuable to the Citadel. As long as they increased their breeding ability, they would be able to increase the number of fire-type dragon-blooded moths and sell them for a good price. Although the initial investment was high, as long as they could sell them, they would be able to make a killing. For this reason, Carney even summoned the leader of the Chao-Kai Beast Catcher Group, Steve Jobs, and rewarded him with a lot of magical crystals. Jobs. He was a half-elf Grandmaster Hunter with more than 30 high-level professionals and more than 100 mid-level professionals. This Grandmaster Hunter had been here for 2 months and suddenly shone in the Citadel. But nobody knew. He was also a member of the intelligence department of the City of Dawn. Jobs' order was to find out about the hidden sentries and ambushes outside the Citadel while capturing the magical beasts. There were also spies with the same status as him. There were more than 100 of them. In the past 2 months, they had infiltrated the Citadel under various pretexts. They used their respective identities to sketch out the Citadel's map, military strength, defensive positions, and the number of magical beasts in the Citadel. However, they had recently received an additional mission. He had to find out what the Beastmaster Lord was up to and why he was spending so much money without exposing himself. On the 7th day after William left the Sky Castle, the Chao-Kai Beast Catcher Group returned to the Citadel. The group circled the magical beast forest for 3 days, but they didn't find anything. After all, adult magical beasts were too powerful. If they couldn't capture them, they could cause casualties. Therefore, they restrained themselves when they couldn't find young magical beasts. But even so, there were still a few middle-order professionals who were swallowed by Grandmaster-level giant python, and not even their bones were left. Many of the beast-catching groups in the Citadel didn't like Jobs. When they saw the beast-catching group returning from the Citadel, they mocked and ridiculed them. Jobs cursed angrily, then left in a huff. But on the same night, he asked Garnier's female assistant to come out, and they had a tough battle in his rented house. Garnier was the city lord of the beast catcher, and the city lord's mansion occupied a large area. There were more than 1,000 servants, so 2 butlers were not a lot. The female assistant, Mivy, was originally a female servant of Garnier. When she was young and beautiful, she had a pleasant nightlife with the city lord. But Mivy was already in her 40s. Although she was an advanced mage, she was not as young and beautiful as she used to be. A guy like Garnier, who liked the new and hated the old, would not look at her anymore. But how could a woman that Garnier had slept with be allowed to leave and marry? Garnier had a strong desire for control. He gave Mivy the identity of an assistant butler, but he didn't give her happiness. So the lonely Mivy would secretly find a man from time to make Garnier a cuckold. Jobs eventually hooked up with Garnier when he met him, and they became a long-term nightlife partner. It couldn't be helped. As a half-elf, Jobs was not only tall and handsome, but also had extraordinary grandmaster strength. Phew! Jobs fell on the bed and took a deep breath. Being a spy was too damn tiring, and he had to sell his body. Fortunately, Mivy was an advanced water mage. She was good-looking and had a lot of time. Otherwise, it would be a big loss. 4 times is not enough. Let's do it again. Mivy put her arms around Jobs' neck, asking for kisses and hugs. The spy from the City of Dawn waved his hands. No. I've been wandering around the magic beast forest for nothing. I'm exhausted. You've squeezed me dry today. Let's talk about it another day. As he spoke, Jobs said to himself, I don't know what Lord Garnier is up to. The Bee City is big and has no shortage of money or equipment. Why do we have to sell magic beasts at a low price? This makes the competition among the beast hunters in the city fiercer. Life is getting harder and harder. Mivy licked her lips and teased him. Life is not easy for you. I'll support you. Forget it. I'm a man. I won't live off a woman. Jobs curled up the corner of his mouth. His face was firm, giving people the impression that he was going to become strong. Mivy looked at Jobs' profile. She seemed to have made up her mind. She could not help but say, Honey, I'll tell you a secret. How about you do it again? What secret do you know? For times, an hour each. It's already 2 in the morning. Let me sleep for a while. Jobs' eyes twinkled as he shook his head. In the dark night, Mivy did not notice his lover's gaze. She just rolled over on top of him and whispered in his ear. A minute later, Jobs' eyes widened in disbelief. So, after Jobs had done it 7 times in one night, his kidneys were weak. William received an envelope in person the next day. The prince's expression gradually changed. Then, this message also became a quest. Prompt: You have received the hidden mission, Born Deity of the 4th Era. Born Deity of the 4th Era. In this era of change, in this era where gods have disappeared, in this era where humans are the main characters, Born Deity has reappeared. What does this mean? Mission details. Please make your choice. Rescue, kill, expose. Mission difficulty, S+. Mission reward, unknown, friendly tip. Your choice may determine your future. Chapter 439. Rescue, kill, and expose. William murmured to himself. In a very short time, he understood the advantages and disadvantages of this kind of mission. Rescuing a natural deity would gain favorable impression points from it and other deities. The downside was that he would become enemies with the Citadel, but he didn't care. Killing the deity would allow him to obtain the body of a natural deity. It was a profitable method for mages, but William didn't know if Moses would be interested in it. William was afraid that Moses would dislike this method because he used to be a natural deity. As for exposing, this was the simplest and easiest way to ruin the Citadel. This was because a power of the Beastmaster Citadel's level would attract the interest of many legendary big shots and even saints. The pressure the Citadel would face would be unimaginable. This way, even if William could attack the Citadel while it was in the crosshairs, he wouldn't be able to obtain a natural deity. Cannell is quite interesting. He wants to use impure earth reincarnation. No wonder he needs so many materials. William pondered for a while and understood why the Citadel was short of money. It was because Cannell wanted to completely obliterate the soul of a natural deity without harming its body. Moreover, he still wanted to perfectly fuse his soul into that body. In other words, he was preparing for a reincarnation ritual. This was undoubtedly very difficult. Only a soul enchanter or a grand enchanter could do it. The key was that a soul mage had to have the skills and knowledge for reincarnation. But Cannell's occupation as a beast tamer is a branch of the soul, right? William raised his brows. Beast tamer was a branch of the soul. Apart from the 3 legendary dragons, the Citadel didn't have any other legendary experts. If Cannell didn't want to expose the existence of a natural deity, he might be doing it himself. That was why he had to waste so many materials. It couldn't be helped. It wasn't professional. According to the situation in my previous life, Cannell didn't die and the Citadel was on the verge of bankruptcy. This meant that his reincarnation failed, but he didn't die. However, the natural deity's body was destroyed. William pondered for a while and came up with a plan. 7 days later, the city of Dawn welcomed tens of thousands of magic professionals. Mages and warlocks were the main force. And under the attention of this group of people, Moose appeared in the sky. No one could clearly see her appearance, but the aura of a grand magister was as turbulent as the endless sea. Every mage could feel that kind of power and even felt a sense of submission. There were even 2 magisters among them. They looked at each other, then at the grand magister whose face they could not see clearly, and prostrated themselves on the ground. There was no other reason. This was the strongest grand magister they had ever seen. That feeling, as though they had seen a deity, they could clearly sense the person before them's control over magic and usage of rules. Just like the Lord of Magic they looked up to, powerful and mysterious. Without a doubt, the more powerful the caster was, the more they could sense how powerful Moses was. It could be said, ever since Dan's stepped into the legendary stage, the other professions of the same rank were like little brothers to her. Meanwhile, everyone watched as a mage tower was constructed with countless materials, gems, crystals, and so on. 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters. The pure white mage tower was 300 meters tall and had a base diameter of more than 200 meters. It was completed within half an hour. The mage tower was very smooth from top to bottom. There were not too many fancy and useless buildings. Only the top of the mage tower was like a sharp sword that pierced the sky. Due to the quality of the building materials, the mage tower gave people a feeling that it was indestructible. However, the most shocking scene appeared. The moment Moses embedded a pure white gemstone on the top of the magic tower, a glint of light flashed in his eyes. Buzz! Buzz! The magical wave that could be seen with the naked eye spread to a radius of several million meters in an instant. That unimaginable aura and power made everyone feel a chill from the bottom of their hearts. Then, the mage tower floated in the air and gradually flattened the former fortune-telling shop. Then, it officially took its place. Moses calmly swept her gaze across the countless magic professionals kneeling on the ground. She seemed to have recalled the past, but she still did not reveal herself. She calmly landed on the starry sky platform at the top of the mage tower and slowly entered. Only her back could be seen. A miracle! What a powerful great enchanter. What is that white stone? It's a chaos gem. It's a chaos gem that can contain all kinds of magic. Someone widened his eyes in disbelief. He could not believe that the great enchanter had such a treasure that had long disappeared. Was she not afraid that a grand mage would come to snatch it? What did I see? Earth magic, space magic, water magic, and metal magic. They are all at the level of a great enchanter. A fire enchanter knelt on the ground, his body trembling as he muttered. Moses' first official appearance in this world had already proven her power. Moses did not seem to be in the mood to care about this group of people, because she had seen too many people looking up to her. The age of the gods. Every time she appeared, millions or even tens of millions of magic professionals would lower their heads and acknowledge her power from the bottom of their hearts. Gods, she had done enough. Faith, they were just useless trash. William did not know what she was thinking. After all, he could not let this group of magic professionals leave just like that. So he immediately stood up and said in a deep voice to the group of magic professionals who had not recovered from their shock, "You are here to witness the truth. The power of this magic tower has obviously proven everything. If you want to continue to witness the existence of the truth, and even want to learn magic from this great enchanter, I'll join. Isn't it just joining the City of Dawn? I wanted to join a long time ago, but there was no great enchanter in the City of Dawn. Can we know the name of this great enchanter?" "Moses," William replied calmly. The unfamiliar name of Moses had spread throughout the entire legendary continent in a short period of time. He was a new great enchanter. It was said that when he had built the magic tower, he had used many types of great enchanter magic. In particular, at the top of the magic tower, there was a core chaos gem. This was the most unbelievable thing. First, one had to understand, how did the magic tower increase the combat power of the great enchanter? That depended on what the core gem of the magic tower was. Fire, and earth. Each element had different enhancement gems, and their levels were also different. But the most precious enhancement gem was the chaos gem, which was so rare that it was hard to find. More importantly, this gem could not only enhance the magic of Moses, but it could also enhance the magic of all mages. It could accommodate more great enchanters and enchanters. Even if they cast spells together, there would not be any obstacles. Let's put it this way. A magic tower was a super magic cannon, and the great enchanter of a certain element was the controller of the cannon. But the above magic towers could only accommodate one great enchanter, but Moses' magic tower could accommodate many great enchanters. Even if they cast spells together, the chaos gem could greatly enhance them. The chaos gem was very precious. Many warlock sages in the legendary continent did not have such a treasure. Now, that Moses dared to openly place it on the magic tower, it was hard to imagine how confident he was. Of course, this new great enchanter was obviously not an ordinary person. Not only was he proficient in many types of magic, but he did not cause any trouble. Ordinary warlock sages did not dare to attack him. After all, Moses was a member of the City of Dawn. The Lord of the City of Dawn was the prince of the Blackleaf Elves. The Blackleaf Elves also had sages. This was their backer. The City of Dawn was no longer a small force. The stronger the force, the more difficult it was to attack it. Even some sages had to consider the consequences of attacking. Unless they were warlock sages from the Magic Sanctuary. It was a pity that Moses did not know Moses' real name, and Moses did not reveal that she was a woman. Moses was famous. In the eyes of many sages and legendary experts, she was a professional with great potential. She was a newcomer who was likely to enter the sage realm. But in the eyes of a few people, she represented the rules of magic, the creator of the magic net, and the goddess of magic. What was more important was Moses had actually revealed his true name. At this moment, the few reincarnations of the gods who knew her name were deep in thought. Some of them decided to continue their training and ignore the affairs of the world. Some of them embarked on a journey to the City of Dawn, because they understood. Moses was telling them that their goddess was here and that they had to meet him. All right, the goddess was a goddess. The method she used to contact them was very direct. But it was just like how Moses dared to reveal her real name. Moses was not afraid that someone would expose her. The other gods were not afraid that Moses would harm them, because they were the same kind of people. They were once gods. However, they were confused about what Moses wanted to talk about. After all, the purpose of the reincarnations of the gods was different from the purpose of the gods who had not been reincarnated. For example, the god of light, the goddess of fortune, the goddess of misfortune, the god of darkness, and so on. They wanted to maintain the rule of the gods after the gods descended. As for them, they had no choice but to reincarnate and be reborn. God Tao, Sage Tao. This was the theme of the civil war between the gods. Were the sages very powerful? But where did the first sage of the elves, humans, Serafkin, dwarves, and orcs come from? Wasn't it because the gods had created a path for these ignorant people? Perhaps this group of so-called saints had already forgotten about it. The name of this continent. This was called the God's Continent. Chapter 440. William, who was using soul control, was dumbfounded. He grabbed the small fire dragon and threw it to Cannell. He hurriedly said, D*MN, I said I didn't want to buy a fire dragon. I didn't want to buy a fire dragon, but you forced me to buy it. It had the right to become the leader of the dragon race. Blood Dragon said the same thing and hoped that it could lead the dragon race. There were even a few dragon wolves with epic and legendary bloodlines. They were indeed superior mounts. William met with him in the middle of the night. No one knew what they talked about. Hence, the fire elemental magic in the conference hall became denser. Moses had announced that he had become a great enchanter in the legendary continent. You are the Beastmaster City Lord Cannell? Geralt clearly knew his name. Cannell waved his hand to remove the magic on the fire dragon's egg. Cannell had no intention of drinking tea and chatting. He glanced at the closed door of the conference hall. Then, he took out the fire dragon's egg from the alternate dimension. That's right. How can a dragon knight not have a dragon? Cannell chuckled, but he seemed to have a new idea. Suddenly, he smiled and asked, Prince William, are you interested in selling your method of becoming a dragon knight? He immediately used soul control on the small fire dragon. The teleportation hall was not big enough. As the number of dragon wolves increased, William ordered Nox to lead the beast tamers and arrange for the dragon wolves to stay in the army camp to prevent them from rioting. Anyway, Sicario would never have the chance to become the leader of the dragon race. That was because both of them were hated by the legendary golden dragon. But how did this guy in a long golden robe, who exuded the might of the dragon, come here? When William saw Sicario's unhappy expression, he seemed to have guessed something. It was a pity that William dared to make a deal. He thought that the legendary golden dragon was not at home. Perhaps he was not at home, but he suddenly came to the City of Dawn. William looked at Cannell. The electric arcs on his body kept flashing. His anger had reached its peak. He had insight, so he could see that most of the dragon wolves were intermediate, but their bloodline potential was very strong. Most of them had Grandmaster bloodlines. William was overjoyed. How could he be angry? Forget it. You're right. Follow me. William sighed and waved his hand. Both of them went to the conference hall. Big Boss. In addition to William's clueless expression, it was obvious that this was an accident. Speaking of which, this move is slightly different from mine. Although the possibility of it being robbed wasn't too high, if it was really robbed, then there was no way to reason with them, no matter how one looked at it. The Lord of the City of Dawn seemed to want to purchase the Fire Dragon and control it. Ever since Dawn City's Dragonblood Legion had formed the Legion buff, it had been able to suppress magical beasts with the dragon race's bloodline. This was a type of telepathy of the dragon race. Or in other words, but you still want the money back? It's definitely a fully developed fire dragon egg, the kind that's about to hatch. The Dust Dragon was ridden as soon as it hatched. Charmander, who was originally very happy, instantly widened its eyes and fell to the ground with a scream. His Royal Highness gave him the space ring filled with gold coins. Don't think that I don't know what you're up to. But since Cannell dares to buy and sell dragon eggs and young dragons, there must be an explanation for this. Geralt clenched his fist and casually threw the small fire dragon to William. Then he turned and left. William had thought that Geralt would bring other gold and silver dragons with him. Speaking of which, is it possible that only this kind of soul control, which has a very low success rate, can one become a dragon knight through torture? Cannell was deep in thought. William didn't avoid Cannell. When William saw the dragon egg, he was a little dazed. Yes, wasn't this just asking for trouble? The legendary gold dragon Geralt had also returned to the City of Dawn. How? This group of dragon blood forest wolves were tall and had sharp fangs. They had black and white fur, and they looked like a group of mutated huskies. How? This was because the legendary gold dragon represented justice and fairness. In his heart, he would never approve of William's actions of buying and selling dragons. TSK, you want to buy it? William suddenly became interested. He took out 2 bottles of wine and gestured for Cannell to sit down. Some beast tamers chained up the dragon wolves and walked out of the teleportation portal. Something was not right. When Cannell appeared, William was already at the entrance to welcome him. A small fire dragon with red dragon scales crawled out of the portal. 3 seconds later, He watched as the legendary big shot walked over step by step, and he was terrified to death. The dragon egg is here. Where are the gold coins? Cannel's palm was still on the dragon egg. What a joke. With a method to become a dragon knight, I can exchange 10 dragon eggs. William sneered. However, the city of Dawn had suddenly gained a powerful great enchanter named Moses. So, he gave up on the idea. He didn't want to cause trouble for himself. It was a red dragon egg that was more than a meter tall, but it was obviously a legendary gold dragon. However, the pairs of vertical golden pupils gave off a bloodthirsty feeling. It was a pity. Sicario was an ancient dust dragon that had been passed down to this day. Gerald also had the intention of tricking him into the Dragon Valley and properly nurturing him. The surface of the egg was covered with fire elemental lines. The moment he took out the dragon egg, William squinted his eyes and smiled. Brother Gia, I told you that I'm a righteous dragon knight. When I heard that someone wanted to sell dragon eggs, I decided to spend 100 million gold coins to save these cute little guys. Originally, he had planned to use the egg of a dragon to deceive William. They wouldn't accept a dragon that had been ridden as their leader. The walls of the conference hall exploded. He glared at Cannel hatefully and glanced at William. Then, he hugged the Charmander and left. D***M in it. If you didn't want to befriend the Golden Dragon race, our deal wouldn't have been discovered. Your fire dragon was stolen. Go and get it back from him. Cannel was furious. He didn't suspect that William had tricked him. The small fire dragon was stunned. These 5,000 mount wolves were completely tailored for the Dragonblood Legion. That was why the legendary gold dragon wanted to befriend William and interact with the ancient dragon. It was the same. Tomorrow, City Lord Cannel would bring the dragon eggs and the uncontrollable dragon wolves to Dawlight City for business. At that moment, was he supposed to tell the 3 legendary dragons at home that the dragon eggs he was selling were robbed and that they wouldn't pay up and help him get them back? Ding dong. The charm of a dragon would begin to fascinate people from the moment the dragon eggs were hatched, even if it was a fire dragon egg. He quickly explained, Misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding. I am the Lord of the Beastmaster's Citadel. My father and I have always had a good relationship with the dragon race. This is definitely a misunderstanding. Please spare my life, Lord Golden Dragon. Cannel left the City of Dawn with a group of beast tamers. Prompt. Cannel's affinity for you has decreased by 300 points, but he still asked cautiously, Are you sure that the dragon will hatch? William had the same expression, and his acting skills improved. He roared at Cannel, Return my space ring. My 100 million gold coins have been snatched away by the fire dragon. Do you want my money to go to waste? It was a slap in the face. The teleportation portal flashed continuously. This was William's territory. No matter how many powerful subordinates Cannel had, he wouldn't be able to gain an advantage in William's territory. Cannel laughed dryly. These dragon wolves don't have good personalities, but their strength is quite good. If you make good use of them, they can definitely become the main force of the cavalry. I brought you the male and female wolves. You can breed them yourself in the future. The little fire dragon hadn't eaten its egg yet, and it hadn't even started to enjoy life. Just like the dust dragon, it was about to experience a hellish and tragic experience. Why did you throw me to this perverted monster? There were even a few dragon wolves that were too ferocious and wanted to bite back at their masters. However, William waved his hand apologetically and asked the others to leave. Yes, at the Dawn teleportation portal. But Cannel was extremely afraid. What are you thinking? Are there any dragons in the City of Dawn? William rolled his eyes and asked. William pretended not to know. Cannel's expression did not change. He extended his hand and said, Give me the space ring. I'll hatch the fire dragon now. I can't just run away in your territory, can I? But this didn't mean that the Dragonblood Legion couldn't control them. He didn't want to explain, so he said, Anyway, I'm giving them to you for free. Even if you can't ride them, you can kill them and eat their flesh. After all, the purpose of our transaction isn't to obtain these mounts. As long as he could endure this period of time and transform his body into a god's body, his power would increase tremendously. It wouldn't be too late to have fun then. But the dragon wolves didn't seem to be used to using teleportation portals. They kept howling. The current situation was only one possibility. At a close distance, the adult great dragons could sense the life force of the newborn dragon. I knew your father back then. I didn't expect his son to be secretly selling dragons. Geralt gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. But he didn't attack because of Cannel's father. It was all an accident. This also showed that the Lord of the City of Dawn was a righteous, brave, and righteous knight. That's racial discrimination. Even if I wanted to lie to you, the great enchanter in your family isn't someone to be trifled with. Am I right? Cannel's mouth twitched. Cannel was dumbfounded. Holy F *CK. So, it's soul control, he still didn't attack. William pretended that he had not expected Geralt to be here. He awkwardly picked up the small fire dragon from the ground, and with a smile on his face, he handed it over to Geralt. Then, he reluctantly said, Why are you back? The fire dragon was less than half a meter long, but its wingspan was close to 2 meters. It's over. It's all over. Cannel was dumbfounded. He sat on the ground in a daze. The Lord of the City of Dawn seemed to want to befriend the Golden Dragon race. It was an extremely tragic cry. At this time, quite a few guards had already barged in and were staring at Geralt like a tiger watching its prey. Dream on. If you have the ability, then kill me here. Otherwise, don't stop me. Cannel was quite confident in his ability to do so. But the fire element in the conference hall was much denser. William narrowed his eyes and showed Cannel the gold coins in the space ring. Then he took the space ring back and shook his head cautiously. I'm not afraid that you'll sell fake dragon eggs. I'm afraid that I won't be able to hatch them. You are a beast tamer, and you said that this thing is about to hatch. Then you hatch the small fire dragon, and we'll hand over the money. This was too embarrassing. The dragon egg seemed to be automatically absorbing fire element magic. Cannel almost vomited blood. You used soul control so vigorously just now, and you said you didn't want to buy a dragon. You failed to control it, and now you're blaming me? If I didn't use magic to control it, it would have hatched. Because a true Dragon Knight could only ride on the Dragon Tooth platform after being recognized by the Great Dragon. Then, it would be time for the best actor to possess the body. It didn't matter if Sicario was an ancient species from the First Era. He didn't have a chance. But Geralt still returned to the City of Dawn. Looking at the direction of his research, he seemed to be investigating the living environment of the many races in the City of Dawn. Why was there no conflict? The handsome prince stood in the teleportation hall without saying a word. His face was dark, and he was obviously very unhappy with the dragon wolves. When Cannel saw William, he was also unhappy. They were both in the neutral camp, and he wasn't any weaker than William. Stop pretending. He used soul control one after another. Cannel pressed his hand on the dragon egg and chanted an incantation. Because the Lord of the City of Dawn had become a dragon knight, he had attracted the attention of the dragon race. But just like what had happened, ordinary soldiers couldn't control these Mount Wolves. Bang! Oomph! If I didn't come back, I wouldn't know that a guy like you actually dared to secretly buy and sell dragons. But we'll talk about your matters later. Geralt pushed William away with such force that William was embedded in the wall like a cannonball. Cannel hesitated. He looked around and couldn't help but ask, Are there other dragons in the City of Dawn? If there are dragons nearby, they will be discovered when a baby dragon is born. Even if I'm a fire dragon, I'm still a dragon. The Golden Dragon race is looking down on fire dragons. In the silent hall, cracking sounds could be heard continuously. This was an insult to the dignity of the dragon race. In the next second, if the beast tamers weren't strong enough to chant incantations and release magic spells, they would have been bitten. He could only watch Cannel leave step by step. You want to buy it? Cannel shook his head. I don't think so. I think it's fair to exchange this dragon egg for the method to make you a dragon knight. You even dare to bite beast tamers. How are my men going to ride you? Are you going to be bitten to death by your own mount in battle? William sneered and closed his eyes. He was too lazy to speak. A tall, middle-aged man with a furious expression broke through the wall and entered the hall. Then, he let out a childish dragon roar. In the end, He was the only one who came back. Boss, don't go. Tell me what's going on. Geralt was furious. He had just faintly heard Charmander scream. But the success rate of your soul control is a little low. Look at how you tortured this dragon. Chapter 441. William glanced at the Charmander in his hand. The little guy's golden eyes were wide open. It didn't dare to move for fear of being tortured by the soul control again. Unfortunately, it was not up to it. The prince had no reason to let go of the Charmander that he had bought with 100 million gold coins. It didn't matter if it was an elemental dragon or a gemstone dragon. He immediately used the fierce soul control technique more than 300 times before the soul imprint was deeply imprinted in the Charmander's mind. Then, he handed over the dying little fire dragon to Sicario, whose body was an adult, but whose mind was still immature. He let the naughty dust dragon, Blackie, teach little Red a lesson. After all, William wanted to lose 100 million gold coins for this plan. He wanted Geralt to know the truth about the dragon egg trade in the Beast Mastery Citadel and cause a dispute. Although Geralt was angry and wanted to go to the Beast Mastery Citadel to explain the matter to the other 3 legendary dragons, he didn't want to take the Charmander with him. This meant that the rift between the metal dragon and the elemental dragon was not small. But the dignity of the dragon race was another problem. He could be unhappy with the elemental dragons and even watch them die, but the Beast Mastery Citadel couldn't sell them. It was like saying that he scolded his country, but if someone dared to invade, he would kill the person. As a personal guard, Nox slowly walked to the day's prince and pointed at the human-shaped hole in the conference hall. "Your Highness, do you want to fill it up? If you don't fill it up, are you waiting for people to laugh at you?" William glared at him and left while yawning. He had already discussed with Brother Gia that this was all part of the plan. All they needed to do was to put on an act. But who knew that Geralt would be so angry when he saw this scene that he even crashed into the conference hall? 3 days later, an earth-shattering massacre occurred in the Beast Mastery Citadel located in the magical Beast Forest on the legendary continent. This city, which was originally made up of humans and magical beasts, fell into complete chaos on the 3rd night after the Dragon Egg trade. The dragon aura of the legendary dragons covered an area of hundreds of kilometers. Whether it was the wild magical beasts outside the city or the magical beasts under the control of the Beastmasters, all of them became bloodthirsty beasts. In a short period of time, the Beast Mastery Citadel suffered great losses. One day and one night of massacre, dragon breaths that were thousands of meters long were unleashed. These beasts ravaged the city and feasted on human flesh. This was a disaster for the Citadel. This was because the scale of the massacre this time was much larger than in his previous life. An entire half of the city, more than 800,000 civilians and professionals were killed. More than 100,000 soldiers from the Citadel died to the dragon breath, regardless of whether they resisted or not. Basically, as long as a dragon saw it, it would basically die. And such a situation occurred. City Lord Cannel didn't even dare to show himself. But even so, his City Lord mansion was also crushed to pieces, and hundreds of his servants died. Of the 3 guardian divine beasts of this city, the 3 dragons, only one remained unmoved and watched coldly from the sidelines. The other 2 dragons unleashed their fury on the city. No one dared to stop them. Even on the day of the massacre, there were already legendary powerhouses who received the news. However, the majority of the people still acted as if everyone was sweeping the snow in front of their own door and didn't care about the frost on the roof of others. Even the legendary experts who supported the first prince had no intention of helping. It had to be said that the Citadel was quite bad at diplomacy. Of course, from this, it could be seen that the Citadel's beasts were very expensive, so no one was willing to help them. The Beastmaster Citadel was a powerful supporter of the first prince and even occupied a significant position among the major powers. This was also the reason why Cannel had 3 legendary dragons behind him. Now that the Citadel was in a civil war, Cannel didn't dare to resist or mediate. This meant that the Citadel's decline was inevitable and unstoppable. Some people with discerning eyes understood this as well. The dragons seemed to have caught the citadel selling young dragons and dragon eggs. Otherwise, such a thing wouldn't have happened without evidence. At the same time, inside the First Prince's palace, First Prince Peter was watching the live broadcast through a water mirror technique and seemed to be enjoying it. This was because the dragon breath of a legendary dragon was too powerful. Each breath would cover an area of several thousand meters. Each breath could devour hundreds or even thousands of people. Buildings were turned to ashes and collapsed one after another. It was quite a thrilling scene. Next to him was an ordinary-looking young man with bright eyes. The young man spoke, "The Beastmaster Citadel is about to fall. Without the support of a legendary dragon, and with such heavy losses, there will be many powers that will beat them down. Those small powers that were tricked by the Citadel with dragon eggs will either go to their doorstep or condemn them. Your Highness, what do you plan to do?" "Nothing more than support Cannel in his hour of need. That way, he will be completely loyal to me, and I will no longer be lacking in beasts. Or else, I will watch as the Citadel falls, and then I will take over." Peter sneered, but he clearly didn't know what to do. After all, one was to gain Cannel's loyalty. The other was to directly take over the Citadel. The latter was clearly more tempting. However, he didn't know whether the first City Lord was dead or alive. Especially if he dared to annex the Citadel, many of his supporters would be bitterly disappointed. Thus, he needed to be secretive and have a neutral lord do it for him. For example, this young man in front of him, Paul Bane, seemed to have read the prince's mind and smiled. "Your Highness, if there's anything you don't want to do, just leave it to me. You belong to the new neutral faction in the eastern region and are close to the magical beast forest. You must have some grievances with the Citadel, right?" Peter smiled. Paul Bane chuckled. "The Citadel's beasts are so expensive, there are very few people who don't have grievances with them. Then go and do it well. Don't come back here for a while, lest others find out about our relationship." The prince narrowed his eyes and added, "Kill Cannel, and, if possible, find the Beastmaster's legacy." "Understood." Paul Bane nodded with an indescribable sense of confidence and slowly left. The prince looked at Paul's departing figure and felt a bit emotional. This guy was just a chess piece that he supported in the past. He didn't do anything. He only thought that Paul's talents weren't bad, so he gave him a decent energy manual along with 100 gold coins. He liked this method a lot. This was because the great Emperor of War, who was also his father, had obtained the loyalty of a legend profession in the years to come because he had widely distributed battle chi manuals and gold coins. This legend rank powerhouse was able to reach his current level step by step because he had received a small favor from Emperor Jigu. Peter didn't expect that he would have such luck. Paul Bane was able to rise step by step, not only becoming a powerful epic profession, but also a new neutral faction lord. This made Prince Peter very happy, and he even felt that he was the best candidate to inherit the throne. However, Peter always treated Paul as a spy and didn't allow anyone to connect the two. Paul Bane, the founder of the Eastern Mercenary Union. Or rather, when the City of Dawn created a diversified mercenary model, many forces in the legendary continent learned from it and even tried to surpass it. And this Eastern Mercenary Alliance was undoubtedly the most similar and also the most well-developed force. It had only been 3 years since it was established. It was only 1 year later than the City of Dawn. However, due to its geographical location, the neutral camp under Paul Bane had become the largest mercenary legion in the eastern region. The war-ending empire rarely hired them, but some of the kingdoms, grand duchies, and small duchies in the eastern region were their financial backers. The Eastern Mercenary Union didn't have a legendary master. However, when some forces tried to cause trouble for them, they were stopped by various reasons. Everyone vaguely knew that the Eastern Mercenary Union had someone behind it, and that person seemed to be someone from the Empire. Hence, no one dared to attack them. Therefore, the Eastern Mercenary Union developed smoothly and gradually became one of the 4 major neutral camps in the eastern region. The number 1 neutral camp was undoubtedly the City of Chaos, which had been established earlier than the war-ending empire. The Lord of the City of Chaos was very powerful. It was rumored that he had the power of a sage. Of course, these were just rumors, and most of them were untrustworthy. The second was the Beast Castle, which had hundreds of thousands of magical beasts and 3 legendary dragons. It was a pity that they had been tricked. Even if they could not return to their peak, it would be good if they could maintain their current power. The third was the Lord of the Eastern Sea Island. He was a legendary master. Not only did he have hundreds of warships, but he also had a legendary sea beast. He was very powerful, and he did not have any conflicts with other forces. This was because his territory was on a huge island in the East Sea. Although it seemed to be a neutral camp, there were many civilians in his territory. The fourth was the newly risen mercenary union. Paul Bane used his charisma and powerful strength to combine the large and small mercenary groups in the eastern region. His method was not very authentic, but he managed to do it. The result was obviously more important than the process. This force didn't have any legendary bigwigs, but they had 5 epic professionals. The Beast Castle had been massacred by 2 legendary dragons. This attracted the attention of many forces. Basically, those with enough power had many devious thoughts. As for who would be able to swallow this fat dragon meat, no one could say for sure. But those who were observant could sense it. After the 2 legendary dragons left, the already dilapidated Beast Castle welcomed a group of outsiders. But no one noticed. Among this group of outsiders, the handsome Lord of the City of Dawn was also among them. After all, before the war, they had to get their hands on that natural deity. As such, even if they could not conquer the Beast Castle, it would not be a loss. Chapter 442. Cannel never left the Citadel. Even when the 2 legendary dragons went berserk, he didn't show himself. He simply hid in a different dimension. If the 2 legendary dragons didn't search carefully, they wouldn't be able to find his exact location. In other words, the 2 legendary dragons had no intention of killing him or even massacring the Citadel. After all, they had lived in the Citadel for several hundred years and watched Cannel grow up. Making mistakes wasn't a big deal, but the key was to recognize and correct them. However, a coward like Cannel didn't even have the courage to face them. This infuriated the 2 legendary dragons. Of course, it was understandable that Cannel was afraid of death. He had captured a natural deity. As long as his impure Earth reincarnation law was successful, he would definitely become a saint in the future. The chaos in the Citadel had yet to disperse. After the 2 legendary dragons left, Cannel came out to preside over the situation. However, he didn't stay for long and left in a hurry. Even with the military in charge of the city, there were still many professions that took advantage of the situation. The beast catchers were willing to risk their lives for money. This meant that they weren't good people. Moreover, with the magic beasts running around everywhere, the Citadel security was at its lowest point in several hundred years. 1/5 of the 50,000 Beastmasters died in this massacre. This was a heavy loss for the Citadel. After all, not everyone could become a Beastmaster. However, the number of Beastmasters represented the Citadel's foundation and capital for its rise. Even so, as usual, Cannel rarely appeared. This made people wonder what he was up to. The prince came to the Citadel, but before coming here, he drank a transformation potion. Not only did his face, weight, and height change, but even his aura had changed. Of course, no matter how William changed, he was still so handsome. Just as he walked out of the teleportation hall, 7 or 8 muscular men suddenly walked over with the posture of men on both sides of them. The leader was a master of the fire element. He had a full beard and a scar above his eye. He didn't look like a good person. He glanced at William and was about to say something. Bam! His Royal Highness kicked out with lightning speed. He was pretty strong, but before he could register what was going on, he was already embedded into the wall like a cannonball. All the blood vessels in his body exploded, and his bloodshot eyes popped out. It was clear that he was already dead. The others couldn't help but swallow their saliva. We haven't even said what we want to rob, and you're already making a move. Isn't that a little too much? However, no matter how outrageous William was, they didn't dare to provoke him. They didn't even help up their leader, who was embedded in the wall, and they all ran away. And after he left, the guards guarding the teleportation hall looked at each other and silently sent William's face and information to their superiors. Recently, many outsiders came to the Beastmaster's Citadel. It seemed that they wanted to take advantage of the situation. but the portal could not be closed. Closing it would give outsiders the feeling that the citadel was done for. This is really messy. William walked on the main street of the city. Not to mention the locked doors. Many of the windows and doors were smashed by external forces. There was a nauseating stench in the air. Who knew how many corpses were in this place? But this was not a disaster area. The residential areas near the legendary Great Dragon had basically been reduced to ruins. The commoners and professionals who lived there had died without a complete corpse. Not even their ashes were left after the baptism of the dragon's breath. Now, the people who dared to walk on the streets were all professionals. Most of them were in groups, trying to find some sense of security. After all, if they weren't strong enough, they had to be prepared to be robbed or killed. Most of the soldiers of the Beastmaster Citadel were rebuilding in the disaster area. Although there were many patrols in the other districts, it was still very dangerous. Many patrols had been killed by the ferocious beast-catching teams. William walked alone on the street and attracted many people's attention. He emitted a Grandmaster aura, but nobody dared to provoke him. Soon, William turned left and right with familiarity and arrived at an alley. A few seconds later, he disappeared. 30 seconds later, he appeared in a courtyard a kilometer away from the alley. Jobs looked at the Duke emerging from the ground with a flash of admiration in his eyes. As expected of His Royal Highness, he never took the usual route. He bowed and said, "Welcome, Your Royal Highness." With such a magical way of entering and exiting, no one would realize that Your Royal Highness and I are related. William patted his clothes, took the drink that Jobs handed over, and walked into the room. He sat on the seat of honor and asked, "Have you found out the exact location of the natural deity?" Jobs had a bitter expression. "I had already settled the woman. If I had just one more day, the housekeeper would definitely have told me the location." But the two legendary great dragons suddenly went crazy and destroyed the city lord's mansion with their breath. The housekeeper also died. "So you didn't find the location? Your subordinate is guilty. Please punish me, Your Highness." Jobs knelt on one knee. He had given a military order, but now there was a problem. Even if there was a reason for it, it was still his fault. William narrowed his eyes. "Forget it. You can't be blamed for the sudden attack of the legendary great dragons. Just tell me what you know." "Here's the thing," after a long time. William waved his hand to stop Jobs from talking. He tapped his fingers on the table and murmured thoughtfully, "There's a large underground space in the city lord's mansion. More importantly, there's an alternate dimension in the underground space. That is where the natural deity is kept. This is a bit tricky. Even if I can find the location of the alternate dimension and break in, it will cause a commotion." Then the prince suddenly asked, "Do you know who can enter the alternate dimension?" Jobs rolled his eyes and said, "It seems that only Lord Garnier, Deputy Lord Poland, and some of their confidants can enter that alternate dimension. And recently, except for Garnier, who came out a few times, no one else seems to have come out. That is to say, if I want to break in, I will definitely be discovered." William was in a bit of a dilemma. He was very confident in his strength, but facing two epic professionals at the same time, coupled with some unknown traps, was a little dangerous. He was flesh, but flesh did not mean that he would not die. If he could find a better solution, that would be for the best. "That's right." Jobs' eyes suddenly lit up, and he hurriedly said, "That Garnier will find a woman to spend the night with him every day. I know who he will find today. Maybe I can start with this woman." William pondered for 2 seconds. He wanted to say, "How the hell do you want to start?" "I want you to find a man who can enter and exit the alternate dimension so that I can disguise as him and sneak in." The prince coughed and said, "Think carefully. What other men can enter the alternate dimension?" Jobs thought for a long time, but he still shook his head. "I don't know where the professionals who can enter the alternate dimension are. Garnier seems to be restricting their freedom. He will not let them out until this matter is resolved. That is, except for his women. Even if they enter the alternate dimension, they will only sleep with him. They will not know what Garnier is researching. Forget it. Tell me the detailed location of that woman, and I will deal with her." William's mouth twitched. He did not dare to waste too much time. After all, who knew if Garnier would have enough funds for the impure reincarnation after accepting 100 million gold coins from him. It would be bad if the natural deity was ruined by him. After all, this kind of hidden mission had a time limit. Perhaps he had a lot of time, but after the 100 million copper mixed gold coins were traded, the time limit might have been shortened a lot. When Jobs heard this, his eyes lit up. He seemed to have thought of the handsome prince. He immediately took out a map and marked the location of Garnier's lover. He boasted, "Prince William is worth 2 men. If the city lord wants to be a spy, what information can't he get? Get lost." William sent him a word. Jobs shrugged and turned to leave. As time passed, when the sun was about to set, William became a nuclear-powered excavator again and dug all the way to the back garden of Garnier's lover. Then, he swaggered out of the hole. Everything within a radius of a kilometer was under his sole perception. There were 2 guards dozing off at the door. In this 2-story building, besides the 2 female servants, there was only a young woman who was eating. He quietly flipped over and went to the 2nd floor. He walked out of the woman's bedroom. When the young and beautiful woman saw William, she could not help but scream in fear. However, the soundproof barrier was activated. Even if she screamed till her throat broke, no one would come to save her. Next, William stretched out his evil hand and used soul control. Swish, swish, swish. In just a few dozen times, the beginner-level sorceress was drenched in sweat and slumped to the ground. She had completely become his female slave. After all, no matter how low her luck points were, there was still a gap between their abilities. William did not give her time to rest. Under the soul control, besides knowing that her name was Alona, he also found out a lot of crucial information to him. As for what exactly it was, His Royal Highness tortured him for more than an hour before he killed him with a swing of his saber. But it was not over. William took out some of her blood and mixed it into a magic pot. After 10 seconds, green smoke emitted. The prince took a deep breath. Gulp. He still drank it. He had no choice. For the sake of the natural deity. Not to mention becoming a boss in female clothing. Even if he became a woman, it would not be a problem. As for the effect, don't tell me. The products of Moses were definitely exquisite. Chapter 443. Alona was a very beautiful woman. In terms of looks, she was at least an 8 out of 10. She had big breasts, a perky butt, and fair skin. After William transformed, he looked at himself in the mirror while changing his clothes. She had a pair of big brown eyes, long eyelashes, and slender legs. 10 minutes later, William felt that an excellent spy should be familiar with his body. He slowly put on the clothes that she had prepared, along with black silk stockings and high heels. What was even more amazing was that William actually twisted his butt and walked a few steps in a very practiced manner. William was delighted. He looked at his beautiful figure and could not help but sigh. Ah, that's right. How can a girl who has never surfed the internet be able to walk like a cat? As for why he was so used to it was not because he had dressed up as a woman before, nor had he participated in any comic conventions. He was also not a member of the internet. It was because he had a high realm. He had excellent control of his balance. He kept Alona's corpse in his space ring and went to the living room to wait for Cannel summon. Before he could say anything, William had just finished his preparations. A patrol team was waiting outside the courtyard to escort her to the city lord's mansion. However, when they were walking, they suddenly felt that Elena seemed to be a little more coquettish today. Her butt and waist were twisting, and the group of guard were a little uncomfortable looking at her. But at most, they had some thoughts. They did not dare to cheat on Cannel. They had to wait until Cannel changed women and forgot about Alona. Then, they would dare to look for opportunities. Time passed quickly. The patrol team brought William to the city lord's mansion. The place had been reduced to ruins. There were broken eaves and walls everywhere. But after a few turns, they came to a house that had not completely collapsed. The Grand Master who was leading the team opened the entrance to the underground tunnel and said, "Go down. Someone will bring you to the city lord." Got it. Elena twisted her buttocks and said indifferently. The group of patrolling guards watched her leave. One of the young guards hurriedly said, "I can't take it anymore. I've been looking at her, but for the entire journey. I'm going to find a woman to vent my lust." Damn it. I've never seen such a coquettish woman. Brothers, let's go. It's my treat today. The leader of the Grand Master stage waved his hand in an extremely domineering manner. Someone suddenly asked, "Captain, where are we going?" It was once opened by the City Lord's little lover. The leader of the group chuckled, and the others followed suit. This was something that could not be helped. Cannell had too many lovers. The entire citadel was filled with them. He thought that all of them had submitted to him, but unfortunately, there were too many who wanted to make him a cuckold. William pretended to be Elena. After walking through a 100-meter-long tunnel, two Grandmaster professionals led him to a secret chamber. Each of the two guards had a key. After they inserted the key into the wall, the door opened and the door opened. Crack! The mechanism was activated. A curtain of water leading to a different dimension appeared. "Please, the City Lord has been waiting for you for a long time," one of the guards said in a deep voice. Elena nodded and walked in without hesitation. The next second, space changed. A large alternate dimension that was tens of thousands of cubic meters appeared in front of them. There was no sun, moon, or starry sky. They could not see if the chaotic energy was devouring the edges of the alternate dimension. It was like the back room of Moses's fortune-telling hut. It was a small alternate dimension. He thought that someone would come to fetch him. But from the largest palace in front of him, terrifying roars, curses, and curses could be heard. Rays of dazzling white light flashed. This caused many professionals of the Beast Citadel to vomit blood as they ran out of the palace. Their bodies also had some burn marks. William strode over slowly. One of the Grandmaster professionals who had just walked out hurriedly stopped him. "Don't go over there. It's very dangerous. Go to the City Lord's room and wait. He'll come out soon." William squinted his eyes and asked curiously, "What monster is inside? Even a powerful existence like the City Lord can't subdue it?" The professional who ran out was obviously not on guard. He sighed. "The City Lord is very powerful, but the monster's soul isn't weak either. The City Lord, the Deputy City Lord, and some beast tamers used soul magic together, but they couldn't erase the monster's soul. It even broke the seal again. But it doesn't matter. Even if it breaks the seal, it can't break the chain that can trap a legendary great dragon." But the City Lord said that the monster's reaction is the last radiance of the setting sun. If we put in more effort today, we might be able to kill it completely. "Oh, what monster is this? Can I take a look? Who's outside?" Cannell's voice sounded. The Grandmaster professional hurriedly replied, "City Lord, it's Elena." At the same time, William gave the Grandmaster professional a sweet look. And so, perhaps he was tempted by William's beauty or because he was attracted by William's good looks, but he unexpectedly said, "Elena seems to want to witness the City Lord's miracle. She wants to go in and have a look." "Oh, let her in then. Don't get too close, or she'll hurt my little beauty." Cannell had actually heard the conversation between the two long ago. He couldn't help but feel happy when Elena talked about how powerful he was. After all, his woman wanted to see how successful he was. What's the big deal? Wasn't a man's success all about letting women see it and submit to him? William followed the Grandmaster professional and entered the room. He saw a huge black altar inside the palace. Almost every stone on the altar was engraved with strange runes. More importantly, these stones were made of dark soul stones that could suppress souls. It was no wonder why the Beastmaster Citadel was so short of money. There were two crystal beds on top of the altar, which were even more valuable. On one of the crystal beds, there was a glowing humanoid creature lying on it, but its limbs, torso, and even its head were bound by a rune chain. It couldn't move at all. There were more than 30 soul mages around it. Among them were City Lord Cannell, Deputy City Lord Rodessa, and other Grandmaster Beast Tamers. As for the innate god, he was no longer able to control the light on the surface of his body to burn everyone. He was once again suppressed. The natural deity's body was covered with tadpole-like black runes. It seemed that these runes were the ones that suppressed the white light on his body. William couldn't help but use his insight. This was a natural deity with the light element. He had less than 10% of his HP left. But Cannell and the others didn't want to kill him. They wanted to erase his soul when he was at his weakest. Then, Cannel would transfer his soul into the natural deity's body. At this moment, the 30 soul mages were still using all kinds of soul spells to damage the natural deity's soul. The natural deity had too many negative buffs, but he was still struggling and even cursing. This was enough to show how powerful he was. Time passed. The natural deity broke the seal again, but this time before he could shine the white light on his body. He was sealed once again. All kinds of soul spells were used. Even though he was a creature born from heaven and earth, he couldn't protect himself under such circumstances. But the natural deity had his own stubbornness and unwillingness. He wouldn't shed tears or be sad. He just kept resisting. His eyes that couldn't emit any light were staring at everyone like a demon from hell. Almost everyone could imagine that if he were to escape just like that, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens for everyone present, not to mention dying without a complete corpse. It was a coincidence that Cannel was able to capture this natural deity, because when this natural deity was just born, Cannel, who was planning to steal the baby dragon, sensed an aura fluctuation. When Cannel saw the natural deity shrouded by the laws of heaven and earth and countless rays of light, he didn't hesitate. He took out the dragon-snaring lasso that his father left him. It was a chain that could entangle a legendary-level great dragon and wrapped it around the natural deity. It could be said that this unlucky natural deity was born. He was caught by Cannel. Although he was born with extraordinary combat power, and he was an epic deity, but a newborn natural deity was still a little weak. After being bound by the dragon-snaring lasso, there was no way for him to escape. In the following year, he was trapped in this alternate dimension. He suffered endless torture. It was not easy for him to hold on until now. Both he and Cannel, they all knew that today would be his doomsday. What was William doing? He didn't do anything. He just looked at the scene calmly. No one knew what he was thinking. Until this natural deity broke the seal again. Until this innate god was once again suppressed. Until the natural deity's soul was completely erased at this moment. Cannel impatiently laid on the crystal bed, urging the others to quickly transfer his soul into the body of the innate god whose life force had yet to completely dissipate. However, no one knew that the natural deity's soul was erased and his life signs had yet to disappear. A message suddenly appeared on William's information panel. Ding dong. Your Sacred Thunder avatar has detected the fusion body. Ding dong. The fusion body is about to die. There are 60 seconds left. Kill it? Rescue it? Expose it? No. This was not William's choice. Ever since the Thunder God told him that his Sacred Thunder avatar had great potential and that he had received the natural deity mission, he had thought of this possibility. Hence, just as Cannel's soul was being removed from his body and was still in midair, he could not help but widen his eyes, because he saw a figure that was also flashing with yellow lightning suddenly appear in front of him. It was not only him. There were others too. Countless people were dumbfounded. What the heck? The second natural deity? Where did he come from? William did not give them much time to think. In the next moment, the Sacred Thunder avatar suddenly entered the natural deity's body. Buzz, buzz. Dazzling bolts of lightning seemed to pierce the sky. As for the innate god who had just died, his body began to flicker with white lightning. He opened his eyes again. He could not adapt. Why did he need the crystal bed? What soul suppression? Various tricks? Sorry, he did not need to. Was there anything more impressive than befriending a natural deity and transforming his avatar into a natural deity? Chapter 444. Cannel was about to place his soul into the body of the natural god. It was less than a meter away from him. He started to think that he was God. However, when the god saw the Sacred Thunder incarnation, his mentality changed. When the Sacred Thunder incarnation entered the body of the natural god, his mentality changed drastically. When a natural god opened his eyes and broke the dragon binding chains with his hands like a divine weapon, the god had a mental breakdown. How is that possible? How can a chain that can trap a legendary great dragon be broken? Damn it, what's going on? Is that another god or something else? Everyone present began to panic. They did not see the sacred thunder incarnation. William had secretly released it. More importantly, Cannell was in his soul state. He could not control his body. In that short half a second, the natural god attacked again. He punched the deputy city lord, who was trying to restrain him, and sent him flying. William, who had transformed, dashed over at lightning speed and sent the few Grandmaster professionals who were blocking his way flying. Meanwhile, the seemingly delicate beauty suddenly took out a large saber that was even longer than herself and slashed at Cannell's body, whose soul had yet to return to his body. Swish! The sword energy that was hundreds of meters long descended from the sky. Cannell, who was defenseless, was split into two from head to toe. What was worse was that William mercilessly used Soul Shock Wave and Mental Blast. But even so, Cannell did not die. After all, he was a soul enchanter. How could he die so easily? However, his soul state seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. Then, Cannell let out a loud howl in his soul form. Deputy City Lord Ballant seemed to have understood something. He shouted, "Soul return, darkness descend, and the Lich shall live forever." Boom! A ray of black light suddenly rose from under the crystal bed. It instantly enveloped half of Cannell's soul and body. As for the other half of his soul, it entered a container in the hands of Deputy City Lord Ballant. In just a few breaths, Cannell's body, which had been split into two, was reunited. However, the body that had just been split open was like a wound that had just been stitched up with a scar that could never be erased. Cannell's eyes emitted a green light as he looked at William and the natural god. He gritted his teeth and said, "No matter who you are, you're going to die here today." After speaking, the palace was instantly enveloped by a black barrier of light. It was obviously a barrier to prevent them from escaping. William was shocked. So that was how Cannell became a lich. He already knew that. However, he did not expect that Cannell in his previous life had already become a lich after he made his move against the innate god. This should be his other preparation. If his soul failed to possess a natural-born deity, he would become a lich. This was because his corrupt earth reincarnation art, which didn't have much control, couldn't allow his possession to fail. If Cannell didn't want to die, there was another way. He could transform his body into a lich's. However, in his previous life, his body was not split into two. In addition, he was a soul mage and had many tricks up his sleeves. Even if he transformed into a lich, no one would be able to detect him. D*MN. He's quite skilled at transforming into a lich. It seems like he's prepared. William raised his eyebrows. He felt that it was a little tricky. The greatest characteristic of a lich wasn't immortality. It was immortality. If William wanted to kill Cannell, he had to destroy half of the lich's soul. He also had to destroy the other half of the lich's soul. As long as he couldn't kill both of them at the same time, he could continuously recover. In fact, William really wanted to kill Cannell in this alternate dimension. However, the crucial point was that there was something wrong with his innate god's incarnation. Notifications kept popping up, as if to prove that Cannell's soul had been erased was not dead. Cannell was now fighting with his sacred thunder incarnation for the body. Hence, William glanced at Cannell, who was also adapting to the lich's body. He immediately used his fist to smash the magical barrier. He crushed the teleportation scroll and disappeared from this alternate dimension. Cannell's expression didn't change. He even heaved a sigh of relief. He knew that this kind of barrier wouldn't be able to stop the intruder, since the intruder dared to take the risk to come to this alternate dimension. It was obvious that the intruder was prepared. He acted like this in order to frighten the enemy who had transformed into a human. Polander walked to Cannell's side and was about to greet him. Cannell trembled and collapsed to the ground. His green eyes were wide open. He couldn't bear the side effects of the lich's body. In addition, Cannell's soul had been ravaged by William. Would there be any changes after Cannell became a lich? William and Cannell didn't intend to risk their lives. When Cannell came out of the alternate dimension, he dragged the god's body that he couldn't control. He transformed into a bolt of lightning and charged into the teleportation portal of the Beast Castle. Then, he returned to the City of Dawn. William didn't care anymore. He didn't care if Cannell would find the space enchanter. He used the teleportation information to find the teleportation records. Because his sacred thunder incarnation couldn't compete with the god's soul that had appeared again. According to the notification on the information panel, the sacred thunder incarnation would be finished in 3 minutes. D*MN, D*MN, hang in there. William clenched his fists in the dimension tunnel. He wanted to speed up. 10 seconds later, he came out of the teleportation portal of the City of Dawn. He dragged the god's body that he couldn't control and flew towards the observatory of the magic tower. Moses noticed that William was rushing towards him. However, when she saw the god's body, a hint of helplessness and hesitation flashed in her eyes. But under the pitiful gaze of William, she stretched out her slender hand and gently tapped the forehead of the god's body. Bang! There was a crisp sound. It was as if a glass had been shattered. William heard a pitiful wail in his heart. That god, he was dead. He had died at the hands of Moses. He couldn't be resurrected anymore. William heaved a sigh of relief. But just as he was about to thank Moses, he discovered that Moses was looking at him with a strange gaze. There was a tinge of excitement in Moses' eyes. At this moment, William discovered that he was still wearing black stockings, spaghetti straps, and a backless dress. Many parts of his body were exposed, and it was a different kind of temptation. When he returned, his body had already recovered, but he didn't have time to change his clothes. But no matter what, William's handsomeness couldn't be concealed no matter what clothes he wore. But he still coughed and explained, "You might have misunderstood something." Moses didn't say anything. She just stared at him. William's mouth twitched. He summoned his elemental armor and covered his entire body to prevent bad people from fantasizing about him. Fisk, as if I'm willing to look. Then Moses pointed at the sacred thunder body that was emitting white light. Did you ask me for the transformation potion because of him? William took off his helmet and revealed his head. Lord Garnier captured him and erased his soul. That's why I decided to use the sacred thunder body to try. I didn't know that he could be resurrected. Moses, who was wearing a white magical robe, was silent. No one knew what he was thinking. The prince gulped. You're not angry, are you? Angry? Moses, who had transformed back into a female body, smiled. She slowly walked to the observatory and said without turning her head, "He's just a newborn god. What does he have to do with me? So what if he's dead?" "Oh, I'm relieved." William heaved a sigh of relief. "However," Moses sighed and said, "However, killing this kind of newborn deity still reminds me of some things in the past." "What past?" Moses looked back and smiled. "Because of the birth of these gods, I was powerful enough to kill all of them. That helped me become the unique goddess of all element magic. Otherwise, do you think I can master all kinds of magic just by relying on my endowment?" William's mouth twitched when he heard this. He was slightly taken aback. He could imagine the beginning of the gods' continent in the era of chaos. Intelligent races were extremely rare. Elves, humans, and the Seraphian had not even been born yet. After the gods were born, besides devouring magic, they might even devour other gods to become stronger. It was highly possible. If you did not devour others, they would devour you. It was not until the birth of the Lord God and the confirmation of the position of a god that the order of the gods' continent was established. It could even be said that this group of gods was born from chaos. They were the representatives of chaos, but they were also the pioneers of order. Moses was very surprised. She did not see fear in William's eyes. She was not used to it. She could still vaguely remember that when she had said those words to Thunder God, that coward had almost run away in fear back then. But William even had the courage to transform into a woman, let alone these gods. At this moment, he finally turned his attention to this sacred thunder incarnation. Now, he did not have an additional skill. Instead, he had an additional god clone that would never disappear. This clone also had 2 endowment attributes, thunder and light. Of course, the invincibility had disappeared, but fortunately, there was. This clone was very powerful. It had more than 10 endowment attributes. It was simply abnormal. William's eyes lit up with envy. The only disadvantage was that he had to control two bodies at the same time. But even so, even if William did not ride on the dragon, he could do whatever he wanted in the epic level. He did not believe that there were many people who could resist the attacks of him and the sacred thunder incarnation at the same time. But there's a big problem. This god clone doesn't require experience points, but I don't have that many magical stones to level it up. William glanced at the progress bar of the clone. Gosh, it needs at least 9 magical stone mines for it to reach the legendary level. How many mines does it need to become a sage? William was bewildered. This was not a god clone, but a Krypton gold clone. Chapter 445. The god's avatar was very powerful. Its only weakness was that it required a lot of gold, so he could not level up. William might become a legendary through experience, but his avatar would still be at the epic level. It was a big problem for Cannel to transform into a lich at this time. If the City of Dawn led its army to attack the Beast Citadel now, there would be many accidents. For example, dark creatures, devils, and specters. After all, liches were not allowed to exist in the God's continent. These evil creatures that violated the rules of life had to be destroyed. Cannel had become a lich, which meant that he had chosen to rely on darkness. Sigh. I'm a kind-hearted young man. I really want to get rid of evil for the people, but I don't dare to show any evidence. William scratched his head. He had transformed into a woman. If he exposed that Cannel had become a lich, and he did not kill him, he would definitely be targeted by Cannel in secret. Cannel was very powerful, but the City of Dawn, the East Sea Metropolis, and the City of Green Light could not withstand a hidden lich who was ready to take revenge at any time. Yes, Lancelot. William's eyes suddenly lit up. If he did not report using his real name, no one would believe him. But it was Lancelot. His favorability with this brother of his had already reached 836 points. It's him. As the Viscount of Light, he should have become an epic professional. William did not leave the magic tower. He sent a message to Lancelot under the watchful eyes of Moses. Beep. What's the matter? I'm busy killing dark creatures. What level are you now? You've become an epic professional. How can I be any slower? Lancelot sent a smiley emoji. William cursed Lancelot for not learning good things. Then he said, I discover an extremely evil lich. I feel that he will turn the human world into a purgatory. He might even cause the end of the world. It will be a disaster for the God's continent. Oh, I'll look for the Pope. William's mouth twitched. It was not his time to look for a Lord God for such a trivial matter. Didn't he know who the main character was? So he coughed and said, just go. This lich isn't that strong yet. It's a growth type and has just become a lich. It's still an epic professional. Tell me, who do you want to trick? Lancelot was not stupid. He knew that William wanted to gain some benefits. But since the enemy was a lich, there was no problem. This kind of person deserved to die. William did not have to ask why. That was of the rules of the church. Moreover, he was just doing a favor for his good brother. What's the big deal? According to Lancelot's thoughts, William had saved him from danger many times. Now is the time for him to repay his kindness. City Lord Cannel became a lich in the underground space yesterday. Lancelot was very rich. Of Lancelot. However, Lancelot quickly said, You know so much. If an outsider heard this, they would think that you were his lover. Ahem, don't worry about it. Anyway, I saw it with my own eyes. You can ask the Pope for a warrant to arrest him. I will. 30 seconds later, Lancelot replied. The Pope refused. He said that you were using me as a tool. The corners of William's mouth twitched. The Pope was a cunning person. He was helping Lancelot to grow quickly. Lancelot was a protagonist NPC. He had to kill one boss after another before he could defeat his destined enemy, the Viscount of Darkness. But I have thought about it. I could bring my soldiers to have a look in a month. Prepare the Dawn Army to support me at any time. William felt a warmth in his heart when he saw this. Lancelot was indeed his good friend. He was willing to help him. That's good. I will withdraw the Dragonblood Legion from the extreme north. 100,000 soldiers will be on standby. If they dare to resist, I will destroy the Beast Citadel. William laughed mischievously. Lancelot had taken the initiative to be William's scapegoat. William had a reason to attack the Beast Citadel. After all, he could use the name of a mercenary to attack the Beast Citadel. Who hired him? Lancelot. To be precise, the Temple of Light had hired him. All Lancelot had to do was give him 1 gold coin, and the deal would be considered a success. It would be difficult for others to find trouble with William. Moses looked at him and giggled. He could not help but say, "Is there something wrong with Lancelot's head? It's obvious, but he is willing to jump into it?" William glanced at the goddess. "What do you women know? This is the relationship between men." The goddess of magic fell into deep thought. She felt that ever since William had become an epic professional, he had become too mischievous. But His Royal Highness didn't give her a chance to tease him for wearing women's clothes, and quickly ran away. Lancelot needed 1 more month before he could find the time to cause trouble for the Citadel. William did not want to be too busy during this period. In the next 5 years, besides completing missions to level up, he also planned to upgrade his technology tree. Who were the scientists in the magical fantasy world? If it was not Grandpa Lou, it would be the mages. After all, battle energy professionals were basically poor. They were walking hormones and rarely read. Even if they did, it was to understand the battle energy secret manuals. However, magic professions were different. Every one of them had read countless books, and they were all experienced people. In fact, the City of Dawn had researched many things. For example, the magical hot air balloon. For example, the dwarf craftsman had made the magic bicycle through the player's dictation. Most of them were useless and could be used as decorations. William didn't want these things either. He wanted the key rune magic. How many types of magic were there in the God's continent? Let's not talk about the attributes. There were incantations, rune magic, elemental magic, gesture magic. There were also many instantaneous magic. However, instant cast spells could only be cast when the magician's proficiency in the skill reached the max. Otherwise, there was no need to recite incantations for this type of magic. Incantations, elemental magic, and gesture magic had to be manually operated. But rune magic was somewhat different. These runes were rich in magic rules, and their forms were ever-changing. They had countless combinations. It was like a Chinese dictionary. It had a fixed number of words, but it could form countless different novels. As for how these rune magic appeared, Moses had once given him an explanation. It was born from the rules of heaven and earth. Moses had mastered this type of magic. But when she used rune magic, she did not use it to create equipment, strengthen the magic tower, or turn it into powerful skills. She did not use it on civilian technology. But there was no other way. The God's continent was a world where individual power was supreme. The weak would try their best to become stronger. The strong would try their best to hide their powerful skills and secret manuals. They wanted to stand alone at the peak and look down on everyone else, even if there were some inheritances. But most people would forget about the commoners after becoming professionals. Did William forget about them? He did not, because he knew, to a certain extent, only by slightly liberating the labor force of the commoners would they be able to bring him greater benefits. Hence, William had the intention to let the players who wanted to change the world join the Dawn Magic Guild. He let them give many suggestions. Some people even copied many things that could be built in the City of Dawn. Then, everything became simple. When many incredible things appeared in the City of Dawn, William would mark the name of the creator, which was the player's ID, on the item. In this way, not only would no one suspect that the City of Dawn's technology tree was so awesome, but it would also attract more players to join the Magic Guild. Then, they would be able to make use of the Baidu Encyclopedia. How could the players increase their sense of belonging to the City of Dawn? To a certain extent, he had to show them that his suggestion could also change the City of Dawn. The God's world did not have oil, but it had something more powerful than oil. It was the magical crystal. The most important benefit of the magical crystal was that it would not cause thick smoke to appear in the sky. As the magic in the God's world continued to increase, the number of magical crystal and magical stones mines would increase. The technology tree in the God's world was too simple. Magical cannons, magical airships, magical equipment. There were only these 3 types of equipment. No matter which one it was a symbol of great power. It was also a waste of magical crystals. A shot from a magical cannon would consume 1/10 of the magical crystals. If more changes were made, would the value of the magical crystals be higher? He had to be more imaginative. With a powerful energy source, could he turn the magical cannons into magical machine guns? Could he turn the magical airships into magical planes? It was a little difficult, but with enough time it was not impossible. Hence, the Magic Guild had been collecting all the scientific papers in the form of contribution points. No matter how incredible or exaggerated it was, the Magic Guild would accept the scientific papers of the players as long as they passed William's review. In order to obtain contribution points and change the world, the players kept writing down everything that could appear in this world. If the City of Dawn was given enough time, the City of Dawn might be able to change the development direction of this world. Of course, this would take up a lot of time, but William did not care. To him, the City of Dawn would earn more and more in the future. The development and research of the Magic Guild was just a small investment for him. In particular, more magical professionals came for Linz. They pursued the truth and did not need to be paid. As someone who had transmigrated to another world, besides becoming stronger and controlling the world, it would be good if he could bring about great changes to this world based on the suggestions of the players. Chapter 446. It took time to climb up the technology tree. It was impossible for the other side to produce the technology just like that. Under the wise leadership of the Lord of Dawn, for many years, they had only developed a hot air balloon. Hence, the other things could be left to the mages. The mages could use the information provided by the players to develop the technology whenever they wanted. Anyway, these things did not affect William much. William did not go to the extreme north. He did not want to stay in that cold place, but he had arranged for the god's clone to go there. He wanted to see if he could scam some magical stones from the Orc Empire. If he was more powerful, he could ask the Orc Empire to support his clone. That would be great. Although the god spirit doppelganger doesn't have an invincibility effect, its defense is still higher than mine. In addition, my arm has copied the hand of God's characteristics. In some aspects, my entire left arm and right hand still have an invincibility effect. As long as he holds the teleportation scroll given by Moses, even the icebound sword sage, who is not proficient in the rules of space, will not be able to trap him. William controlled the god's clone to do the work for him. William was like a salted fish. He was either chatting with Moses in the City of Dawn or sunbathing and fishing on the beach of Stormy Island. The City of Dawn was constantly expanding. Its population had reached 6 million, and it was about to break through the 3 million mark. This neutral camp was not unique in the southern region, but it was considered one of the best. In this month, besides sunbathing, William also used his insight on the commoners. It was to use insight on the commoners in the various territories. As long as they were NPCs with high-grade bloodlines, they would be selected as seedlings for the regular army. It was not just his own territories. William also visited some of the grand duchies and small duchies around the City of Dawn. Regardless of whether the NPCs with advanced, grandmaster, or epic bloodlines had a powerful background, it was simple. Poaching. All kinds of poaching. Even if some people knew that William, the Lord of the City of Dawn, was poaching people from their territories with ill intentions, they did not dare to refuse. They had no choice. They could not win in a fight, so they could only let William poach some people. Anyway, William could not poach all of them, right? After all, the City of Dawn was considered a ruler in the southern region. It was on the same level as the human kingdoms. In a short period of time, he had poached 13 civilians with epic bloodlines, 233 with master bloodlines, and 1,324 with advanced bloodlines. There weren't many of them. Most of them were young people who weren't even professionals, but others didn't know their potential. William knew he would come in waves from time to time. This would ensure that there would be more and more boss professionals in the City of Dawn. With the addition of these NPCs, the birth rate of babies with high bloodlines in the City of Dawn would greatly increase. Meanwhile, William had also received a lot of news. On the 18th day of the massacre, The Beastmaster city lord came out to reorganize the city. According to the informant's information, the wounds on Cannel's body seemed to have disappeared, and no one had discovered that he had turned into a lich. However, the fact that he didn't die after becoming a lich wasn't the main point. The crux of the matter was that someone actually wanted to intercept them. Eastern Mercenary Alliance. The leader of this mercenary group, Paul Bain, was gathering his forces near the forest in order to attack the citadel. This news spread throughout the entire eastern region. It was a pity that the situation wasn't stable. No one wanted to stop him, and no one wanted to get involved. Many forces only planned to watch from the sidelines, or to be the Oriole behind. William was having a meal with Moses. The table was placed on the observatory of the magic tower. There were all kinds of food on it, including those that swam in the sea, flew in the sky, and ran on the ground. Above their heads was the moonlight and the sea of stars. Beneath their feet was a precious carpet made from the fur of advanced magical beasts. Outside, the city of dawn was illuminated by countless magic lamps. It was a city that never slept. Why were the two of them eating so luxuriously? Because he was just 1 point away from reaching 1,000 favorable impression points. William didn't know what to give them, but if they could rely on their good looks to complete the last step, it would be worth it. After all, even if they ate for 100 years, it wouldn't be as precious as the sage blood dragon crystal. William stabbed a piece of magical beast meat with his fork and placed it in his mouth. He chewed it slowly. It was tender and delicious. Then he smiled and said to Moses, "How's the taste?" The second prince of the war-ending empire sent this chef to me. His cooking skills are good, right? This steak is average. The magic power isn't sufficient. If possible, I'd rather eat dragon meat and drink phoenix blood every day, Moses replied indifferently. William twitched his mouth. How could he compare to a Lord God like Moses? He still had some dragon meat. But to him, the dragon meat could no longer increase his attributes. The magic power in it was equivalent to experience points. If he relied on dragon meat to level up, it would be fine before he reached level 100. But now that he was at level 140, it was a loss. It was better to distribute the dragon meat to his subordinates. He picked up the transmission scroll and muttered to himself, "I'm going to settle the Beast Citadel, but they're the legendary great dragon that won't leave no matter what. How should I deal with it? Or how should I chase it away? You've treated me to dinner for more than 10 days. Now you're finally telling me your purpose?" Moses snorted softly and looked outside with his large Katie Lauder eyes. He ignored William. But no matter what, Moses was very alluring today. She wasn't wearing a magical robe. Instead, she wore a long, pitch-black dress. More importantly, she seemed to have tied her waist. Her curvaceous figure was accentuated. Her slender neck was fair and tender, and her black hair was draped behind her head. Every movement of hers had a different kind of charm. Of course, the domineering aura of the goddess seemed to have overshadowed her charm. It gave people a feeling that they didn't dare to profane her. But William, who was thick-skinned enough to block sky-based weapons, was not afraid. He smiled and said, "Help me. After I settle the Beast Citadel, I'll treat you to dinner for more than 10 days. I'll treat you for a lifetime. Magical beast meat for the rest of my life?" Moses raised her eyebrows as a smile appeared on her face. "Dragon meat. If you want to eat it today, I'll go to the extreme north and find a fat, frosty lad to kill." William stood up as he spoke. He seemed to have the intention to leave immediately. When Moses saw this, she hurriedly said, "I'm just joking. Don't take it seriously." William had a serious expression. "I'll definitely take the goddess' words seriously. I'm afraid of you." Moses looked at William lovingly and sighed. "I'll restrain the legendary dragon, but I won't attack." William nodded. "I understand. Actually, you don't have to show yourself. Just use your aura to secretly lock onto the legendary dragon. I'm also afraid that the magic sanctuary will detect you. You're considerate." Moses felt warm in her heart, and she smiled sweetly. William laughed mischievously in his heart. To deal with a woman, besides relying on one's face, one had to rely on one's mouth. As long as one showed the intention to do something for her and the process. For example, if one wanted to eat dragon meat. Did she want to eat it? Perhaps she did. Then he had to show that he was going to slay the dragon. But if the goddess discovered his intentions, she would not make such a request. Instead, she would feel that it was very sweet. It didn't matter if he had a girlfriend before. The key was to be shameless. Next, both of them had a pleasant dinner. Then, they lay on the rocking chairs and gazed at the beautiful starry sky. Moses suddenly said, "Do you know what's outside the God's continent?" William shook his head. He really didn't know, because this was the magical continent. Who knew if the stars above their heads were stones that emitted light? It's a huge, rotating planet, just like the 3 moons above our heads. What about the God's continent? Is it also a planet? William asked curiously. Moses laughed. No, the God's continent is a floating continent with a thickness of more than 300,000 meters. It's covered by an extremely sturdy ice layer that's enveloped in the aura of chaos. If you go to the starry sky outside, you'll be able to see it clearly. You know that those stars are planets? Have you been there before? William was a little curious because he didn't know how powerful the Lord gods were. I had the intention, but it was too far. I gave up halfway through the journey. Moses sighed. She seemed a little disappointed. Flyover? William gulped. Did she have to be so exaggerated? Was the goddess flying at the speed of light? Moses saw William's bewildered expression and knew what he was thinking. She said, "Actually, after leaving the God's continent, not only will our strength not be restricted, but it will also become stronger." On the contrary, it was as if he had been freed and would become stronger. Because in the starry sky, I even had a feeling that I could destroy the 3 moons with a wave of my hand. Also, I can fly. I'm also very good at spatial magic. With a single teleportation, I can cross a very, very long distance. However, I don't know why, but the laws of the God's continent restrict us. Or in other words, this world that gave birth to us should have its own defense mechanism. I even have a feeling that the mysterious appearance of the chosen ones is also a defense mechanism of the God's continent. William was convinced. Moses had a strong imagination, but the appearance of the players was not because of this. Especially now. The prince no longer doubted the authenticity of his transmigration, nor did he doubt the authenticity of this world. It was obvious. He lived in a universe. As for the God's continent that he lived in, it was a very strange but very powerful continent in the starry sky. William had also investigated one thing. That was whether his other self was also playing this game. Actually, according to William's familiarity with him, he should be able to find him easily. But, nope. He had searched for many years, but he did not find his other self. Was it possible? When a person transmigrated, in order to maintain the law of conservation of mass, his other self would disappear. Not to mention that the soul would have mass. It was just that the current technology could not prove it. But the God's world showed that the soul could also possess a large amount of energy and mass. Just like that, both of them talked for an entire night. William learned many secrets about this world. He also received a message from Lancelot. It seemed that he could go to the Beast Castle in advance. So, Paul Bane, let me see how strong you, the main character NPC who is known as the Small God of War, are. The prince took a deep breath. The Legion commander of the Eastern Mercenary Alliance, Paul Bane. He was a super powerful person who wanted to compete with the reincarnation of the God of War for the position of the God of War. In William's previous life, he had the potential to become a sage. Chapter 447. The Eastern Region Mercenary Alliance was one of the 4 major neutral factions in the Eastern region, so they naturally had a large number of people. Paul Bane had more than 500,000 professional mercenaries under him, and they were responsible for all the mercenary missions in the Eastern region. They occupied 80% of the Eastern region's employment market. It could be said that this force was on the same level as the City of Dawn in the Southern region. Paul Bane had gathered more than 300,000 mercenaries in the outskirts of the magical Beast Forest in an attempt to attack the Beast Citadel. Other than himself, there were 2 epic deputy commanders. The scale of this battle was comparable to a war between kingdoms. It would not be easy for the City of Dawn to snatch food from the tiger's mouth. Most of William's troops were pinned down in the extreme north. Even if he could withdraw some of his legions, it would not be a large number. At most, he could gather 100,000 regular soldiers and 50,000 mercenaries for this battle. But there was a more important point. Lancelot, the son of Light of the Temple of Light, had announced that he had received a report that Canel had turned into a lich and was coming to collect evidence. Just these words alone were enough to make a scene. The complicated situation of this war had become chaotic. At the western edge of the magical beast forest, at this time, there were more than 200,000 professional mercenaries stationed here. There were all kinds of tents, and one could not see the end of it at a glance. The barracks were crowded with people, and there were still people coming from afar. The troops were still gathering. In a large tent in the middle, 3 people were talking. Paul Bane, wind and fire dual close combat expert, commander of the Mercenary Alliance. Sycorath, earth enchanter, deputy commander. Casarus, metal and earth dual shield warrior, deputy commander. Sycorath frowned after hearing Lancelot's announcement. The Temple of Light wants to fight for the Beast Citadel. We can't compete with them. That's right. It's not easy for a mercenary alliance to develop to this point, but if we really anger the brilliant shrine, we'll be finished if they send a legendary powerhouse. Casarus nodded. He was an ace shield warrior, and his defense was so strong that it made people's hair stand on end. He was a mercenary group leader in the eastern region, but he lost to Paul Bane in a bet. Moreover, the Mercenary Alliance was too powerful, so he had to integrate his mercenary group. Bane smiled. You all think that the Radiant Temple is purposely fighting for the Citadel's Beastmasters? Sycorath was puzzled. Isn't that the case? The profession of beast tamer is unique to the beast-taming city in the legendary continent. Whoever has them will have an endless supply of magical beasts. If it wasn't for the fact that there were 3 legendary dragons guarding the Citadel, people would have attacked them already. You're right, but it wasn't the Radiant Temple that attacked the Citadel, only Lancelot. Bane shook his head. You mean, the Radiant Temple has no intention of taking action against the Citadel, and this is just the actions of the Radiant Child? Bane furrowed his brows. That is true, but I feel like there are people behind Lancelot, and these guys are the main forces fighting for the Citadel. But even so, the Light Palace is standing on top of his head. How can we compete with them? Sycorath was a little doubtful. Could it be that they had relied on their military superiority to kill all the Temple Knights under Lancelot? The legendary commander of the Radiant Temple in the eastern region might just rush over and kill all of them. Bane shook his head. No, we have no interest in fighting at the same time as Lancelot. Although we don't have enough troops right now, 230,000 is still a lot. We will move out tonight. The 3 of us will take the vanguard and directly take down the western wall. Then, we will fight inside the Citadel. As long as we can enter the Citadel first, Lancelot won't have a reason to chase us out, even if he arrives. Perhaps Lancelot did this for some reason, or maybe Canel turned into a lich, but he will definitely leave after dealing with Canel. He even helped us solve a big problem. So, as long as we don't slaughter civilians, don't slaughter captives, and don't give him a chance to find trouble with us, no one will be able to drive us away. Could it be that he, Lancelot, thought that he was some son of light? Do we have to give up so many days of preparation? I paid a lot to attack the Citadel. There's no reason to give up just because of someone else's words. Very well, it's decided then. The other 2 vice-commanders didn't think too much about it. Attacking the Citadel didn't mean taking it all. But as long as they could take some beastmasters, magic beasts, and resources, they would be able to reap great benefits. If they could actually take over the Citadel, then the Mercenary Union would undergo an earth-shattering change. Thus, they had to be fast. They had to catch people off guard. They had to fight for more benefits. No one knew about the Eastern Mercenary Union's attack. At the very least, this news would only be spread when a large number of troops were mobilized. That was why the prince, who was wearing pajamas and sunbathing on Stormy Island, did not know about it either. However, William's sweet tongue made the goddess feel extremely comfortable. Thus, Moses, who had been divining for William from time to time, noticed that something was about to happen at the Citadel and told him about it. The Eastern Mercenary Union is going to attack today. Didn't they say that they want to gather 300,000 soldiers? They only have 200,000 right now. William immediately went to find Moses after receiving the news. There are many variables in divination. It's up to you to decide. Moses didn't explain too much. She only gave her opinion. Then I can only bring the Dragonblood Legion there. I don't know where the Mercenary Union gets their confidence from. They aren't afraid of a legendary dragon. Could it be that as long as they don't want to kill Cannel, the legendary dragon won't attack? William raised his brows. If that was the case, then wouldn't he have tricked Lancelot? Yes, but it doesn't matter. Lancelot is stubborn. As long as he finds out that Cannel is a lich, he won't be afraid even if he knows that there's a legendary dragon behind him. After all, he has a sage behind him. Thus, out of kindness, William told him that the Mercenary Alliance was going to send out their troops tonight. He also told him that the legendary dragon might be protecting Cannel. Lancelot had the same thought and replied, "In front of the emissary of light and justice, even if there's a god behind the lich, it won't stop me from unsheathing my sword. You can go first. My mission here is about to end. If possible, I'll bring a small team over." Subsequently, William led the 4,500 Dragonblood Legion to the magical beast forest through the temporary teleportation portal that Moses had built. There was no other way. Professionals who had reached the size of the Legion could not use the teleportation portal if they were not in an alliance with other countries. Otherwise, they would be seen as launching an attack. This was why the Eastern Mercenary Union needed such a long time to gather their forces. Nightfall. The 50,000 vanguard army of the Eastern Mercenary Union had arrived at the west of the city. The Dragonblood Legion of the City of Dawn had also arrived at the east of the city. William wanted to understand the situation through the spies in the city. But for some reason, the transmission scrolls couldn't receive any information. The Beast Citadel seemed to have used a shielding barrier. This was especially true for the current citadel. Not only were there no lights like before, but all the magic lamps were also extinguished. The Mercenary Union was facing the same situation. While everyone was hurrying along in the dark, an ear-piercing roar suddenly rang out. Next, countless beastly roars could be heard one after another. It was a beast horde, an unknown number of beasts. Chapter 448. It was late at night in the eastern magical beast forest. Endless roars resounded in the sky. The Mercenary Alliance and the City of Dawn, who wanted to take advantage of the situation, encountered countless beast hordes. Regardless of whether they were running on the ground or flying in the sky, they were everywhere. However, the sky was too dark, and many people couldn't see the huge magical beasts running in the forest. But they could hear the earth-shattering sounds of running, violent panting, and deafening roars. Paul Bane was stunned. He didn't expect the beast-taming city lord to have such a trick up his sleeve. He didn't expect Cannel to want to perish together with his enemies. Because of the beast hordes, the magical beasts in the beast-taming city wouldn't behave themselves. The chaos caused by the giant dragon 2 days ago might happen again. But he had no other choice. He yelled, "Get into formation. All rangers, stay in the center. Use your eyes to stare at the magical beasts above us. Shield bearers, form a circular formation." "Yes, sir," the Legion commanders roared. The vanguard army of 50,000 was at least an advanced professional. But if they flew into the sky, they would become live targets. In the magical beast forest, flying magical beasts were the overlords of the sky. Even Grandmaster professionals wouldn't be able to gain an advantage in the sky, let alone advanced professionals with average flying speed. No one knew how Cannel caused the beast hordes. But when the first wave of magical beasts appeared, Paul Bane trembled in fear. The ***. Cannel can control the species and order of the beast hordes. It's not a chaotic beast hordes. His eyes could see very far into the distance. He saw tens of thousands of forest wolves that were about 3 meters long, and they were charging madly from all directions. There was no pause. There was no sound of horns. Both sides were enraged as though they were enemies. 30 seconds later, the tens of thousands of forest wolves charged at the vanguard army of the Mercenary Alliance with an unstoppable momentum. A shield bearer fell to the ground. Another shield bearer wielded a shield and a sword and quickly stepped forward to protect the formation. But even so, many of the forest wolves could easily leap over their bodies and charge at the melee professionals behind them. This group of berserk magical beasts were like killing machines. While spitting out wind blades, their teeth and claws could easily pierce through the mercenaries' armor. In a short period of time, the Mercenary Alliance had suffered countless casualties. Of course, in addition to these high-grade professionals, the Mercenary Alliance also had nearly 10,000 guru professionals. They not only accounted for 1/5 of the vanguard, but they were also a group of powerful professionals. The moment the forest wolves arrived in front of them, they were cut down by the battle chi slash like wheat. However, this group of people could not care about other positions in the end. Vayne had no choice but to tell the other two vice captains, "Let us take action. We can't afford to lose too many people before we reach the Citadel. That's the only way. Hopefully, I won't have to use up too much do chi. I keep getting the feeling that the battle within the city won't be easy." The three epic professionals did not use their domains, but as long as they made a move, they could basically kill dozens of magical beasts with every move. The area covered by their battle energy and magic was often hundreds of meters. The Mercenary Alliance encountered a horde of magical beasts. It was the same for the City of Dawn, but the effect was different. When William saw the horde of magical beasts, he was so happy that he could not close his legs. He happily shouted, "Get into formation. Don't let the magical beasts take you away. If they do, you'll die. But remember, no matter how many of these magical beasts there are, kill them all." "Yes," the 4,500 Dragon Blood warriors replied loudly. Both sides used a circular battle formation. But while one side was nervous, the other side felt very relaxed. Among the 4,500 Dragon Blood warriors, only 2,000 were guru professionals, and the rest were only advanced professionals. But they were not afraid of death. As long as the entire legion was not destroyed, they would have an endless supply of fresh blood and combat power, unless their mental strength was not enough to support the battle. But the most important thing was these Dragon Blood warriors simply had too many buffs on them. All attributes of the Legion members increased by 80%. Maximum health points plus 80%, attack power plus 100%, defense plus 60%, movement speed plus 40%, and all elemental defense plus 30%. In addition to the dragon's might, any magical beast that faced them would have their attack power reduced by 30%. Gosh, they were like heavenly soldiers and generals. When the beast horde collided with them, the shield bearers of the Dragon Blood warriors were like boulders facing the wind and waves. They were as sturdy as a mountain. No matter what kind of impact and attack they received, they were completely unmoved. Even if they were fatally injured, they would not take a step back. An advanced shield bearer stood at the forefront. Seeing a Grandmaster-level forest wolf pouncing at him, he didn't care at all. He let the huge wolf's claws scratch his head. He just fiercely pulled out his saber and stabbed it at the forest wolf's abdomen with the intention to perish together with his enemy. In the next second, the advanced shield bearer was severely injured. His face was a bloody mess, and even his eyes were blinded. Although there was a wound on the abdomen of the forest wolf, the injury was not serious. But the wound on the shield warrior's body was completely healed in half a second. He swung his weapon again and slashed at the forest wolf's head. What? The weakness of the wolf was the waist. Sorry, his head was made of iron. If he could not die, he would be happy to have his head chopped off. It was like crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. In a short period of time, the 4,000 orcs had achieved incredible results and combat power against the tens of thousands of beasts. William was not idle either. As long as he did not use his ultimate skills, his battle energy would always be sufficient. He only needed to stand at the spot where the beast horde attacked the most fiercely and continuously slash with his battle energy. The long and narrow saber chi that was accompanied by lightning streaked across the sky. Many advanced and intermediate magical beasts were sliced in half. These magical beasts would often turn into corpses in midair and fall heavily to the ground. It could be said that both sides were facing the same number of magical beasts, but the results of the battle were vastly different. What was invincible? The Dragon Blood Legion. the life chain. They were invincible. Together with William's legendary lore endowment, this was an invincible legion. This disdainful army had already made a name for itself in the northernmost land, causing the orcs to feel fear at the sight of it. It could be said that the Dragonblood Legion did not appear. The beastmen defending that section of the Black Great Wall all revealed a look of despair. They had no choice. He really couldn't beat them. They were well-equipped, well-armed, had powerful bloodlines, and had a lot of army buffs. No matter if they were surrounded or bombarded by magic cannons, they were not harmed at all. At most, their equipment would be damaged a little. They were a group of immortal war gods. Wherever they were, the beastmen would be forced to retreat. It could even be said that, after the super war in the extreme north, the beast horde in front of them was a little petty 15 minutes later. The first beast horde had ended. The Dragonblood Legion was in front of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Very few forest wolves could cross the first line of defense of the shield warriors. When William saw that the second beast horde had not arrived, he immediately called out to Albert. The two of them hurriedly used their space rings to store the corpses of the magical beasts. It had to be said, to others, the beast horde could at most maintain a balance between losses and gains. But to William, who had the Dragonblood Legion, it was a huge profit. It could not be helped, if according to normal circumstances. Even if William sent the Dragonblood Legion into the magical beast forest in an attempt to kill some magical beasts, the magical beasts would usually sense the dragon's might and retreat. It was not that they could not kill them, but that they would all run away. Even if there were some iron-headed beasts that refused to retreat, there were too few of them. So when faced with this group of beasts that came to die, William only wanted to say, only once? Could it be more violent? Could it be a little more frequent? I still want more. How many brothers died in the first beast horde? Paul Bane looked back at the mountain of corpses and the professionals who were lying on the ground and wailing in pain. His eyes turned red. Khazarus had the title of the strongest shield warrior in the mercenary world of the eastern region. This 2-meter-tall muscular man said in a deep voice, 3,800 of them. Over 2,000 of them were seriously injured and could no longer fight. Paul Bane gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. Damn it. Cannel caused so many of my men to die. I won't let him off. My earth element forbidden spell is thirsty. If I don't pierce his ass with a rock spike, I'll change my surname to Cannel. Sikarath sneered. He had played a big role in the first beast horde. In a short period of time, he had even created a temporary wall for the mercenary army. But even so, it did not give them much of an advantage. He could only reduce their losses. My lord, we're back. Paul Bane looked at the scouts. He had sent them out before the beast tide. He did not expect them to survive. It was not easy for them to do so. How's the situation? Is there a riot in the beast castle? One of the assassins shook his head with a bitter smile. I don't know. It's pitch black inside the castle. There's a barrier on the walls that cuts off sound and vision. We wanted to circle around the beast castle to see if we could enter from other places. In the end, we found another army to the east of the castle. Another army? Paul Bane raised his eyebrows. Did you see whose flag it was? It seemed to be the city of Dawn, but they only had 4,000 to 5,000 men. The beast horde had already appeared and surrounded them in a short period of time. We didn't dare to take a look and dug a hole to hide. The assassin replied. Paul Bane cracked his neck and sneered. Lord of the city of Dawn? Was it that William? He only sent 4,000 to 5,000 men to compete with me for the beast castle. Once the beast horde is over, he might be the only commander left. Forget about Dawn City for now. We need to defend against the second beast horde. The second beast horde is actually a group of wild boars. Damn it. Sikarath cursed in his mind. There was no need to fear other beast horde in the forest. However, against these boar magic beasts, allowing them to break through the formation would result in disastrous losses. Don't ask why. Because these boar magic beasts were as large as these wild rhinos. Even the East Sea Kingdom in the eastern region had a group of ferocious wild boar cavalry. When Paul Bane heard this news, he was very unhappy. However, when he thought about how the Dawn army had suffered more losses than him, he felt much better. However, in order to not let too many mercenaries die, he had to use the cannons and heavy crossbows in advance. Even if the cannons were used up and they couldn't attack the city, it was better than letting the vanguard army die before they even attacked the city. Chapter 449. Pig-type magical beasts were usually large in size, and their fur was very thick. Their fangs could easily pierce through the armor of warriors. Basically, any pig that could become a magical beast was not only omnivorous, but also very aggressive. When tens of thousands of wild boars in the magical beast forest opened their blood-red eyes and charged, many professionals of the Mercenary Alliance were so scared that they almost peed their pants. They wanted to pick up their weapons and run. But the second wave of magical beasts did not only consist of these wild boars. There were also many flying magical beasts circling in the sky. As long as they found an opportunity, they would suddenly attack, grab their prey, and run. This was the key reason why they did not dare to leave the battle formation. From the side, it could be seen that the mercenaries of the Eastern Region Mercenary Alliance did not have strong fighting spirit. After all, they were mercenaries, and they came out to earn money. But because the Mercenary Alliance was the most powerful, they could not even earn money if they did not join. But fortunately, the Eastern Region Mercenary Alliance still had an Earth Enchanter. He did not dare to conserve his mana. The moment he heavily inserted his magic staff into the ground, a rumbling sound erupted. Right in front of the battle formation that was tens of thousands of meters in circumference, rumbling noises burst out, and a solid wall that was 2 meters thick rose from the ground. Moreover, it was presented in a staircase in front of the many professionals, so that when they faced this group of wild boars, they didn't have to fight head-on at the first moment. But after Cycloat cast this move, he did not have enough mana in his body. His face was pale. Paul Bain saw this and nodded at him. Good job. You just need to conserve your mana to cast a forbidden spell. I wanted to make this earth wall taller and thicker, but it's a pity that I can't compare to a great enchanter. This kind of strategic magic with a radius of tens of thousands of meters requires some time for me to recover. Cycloat sighed. Whether it was a great enchanter or a great enchanter, they all had strategic magic. To them, this kind of magic often consumed more mana than a forbidden spell. But no matter what, they finally blocked the attack of the second wave of magical beasts and did not cause too many losses. As for the Dragonblood Legion of the City of Dawn, there was nothing much to say about it. A group of unkillable and indestructible Dragonblood warriors. Even if these wild boars could charge through their formation, once the beast horde's formation scattered, they wouldn't be able to escape being slaughtered. Of course, this scene was witnessed by Cannel, who had become a lich. However, he remained expressionless and continued to attack the two forces that came to attack the citadel. Deputy City Lord Poland looked at the scene in the City of Dawn and said, "The City of Dawn has sent their strongest Dragonblood Legion. When they faced the Beastman Empire, the Dragonblood Legion was able to force the Beastman army to retreat 5 miles. Most importantly, I heard that this army has a very special ability. It seems like their lives can be shared. I know, it's a secret magic of the elves' life chain. You won't be able to kill a single one of them unless you kill them all," Carney said in a sinister tone. Poland didn't understand. He had seen the Dawn City Lord clean up the corpses after killing a wave of magical beasts. Wasn't that just giving them meat for free? However, Cannel explained, the Dragonblood Legion can even use a secret art like Life Chain. They can be considered a unique trump card, even among the human empires. However, no matter how powerful they are, their energy is limited. I can only hope that these magical beasts can stall them until they can't chase after me. You've really decided to leave? Poland sighed. He never thought that there would be a day when they would have to abandon the citadel. He really didn't know how disappointed the old city lord would be if he came back one day and saw that the citadel had changed. Cannel sneered. What else can I do? Do you really think that damnable fellow will still help me after I become a lich? Go make your preparations and bring enough people and resources to leave before they reach the citadel. Right now, all we need to do is wait. We'll wait for the second darkness invasion and then come back. This is especially true now that I've experienced the power of becoming a lich. Although there's a weakness, it's that other than the pain in my soul, I won't feel anything else. However, I can definitely reach a higher level. Poland looked at Cannell with a complicated gaze. Ever since the city lord had become a lich, even his last trace of humanity had been erased. In fact, it was to ensure that his subordinates wouldn't betray him. He wanted to turn everyone into a lich. Even he himself was the same. Lich. Poland left with a trace of unwillingness in his eyes. The world of gods was too beautiful. Even if he was stuck at the epic rank forever and couldn't advance, he didn't want to become a lich without any feelings. If he gave up on Cannell and left on his own, he would be able to enjoy great benefits wherever he went with his status. Just in terms of finding a woman, he wouldn't give up no matter what. However, he also felt that it was because of this reason that Cannell cruelly killed all of his remaining lovers. He had truly become a perverted soldier. Fuck, why would I follow you to the world of darkness to suffer? As the vice city lord, Poland was much older than Cannell. He was one of the former city lord's disciples and the only epic rank professional. Hence, after the former city lord left, he was in charge of assisting Cannell, who didn't train much and only relied on money to get to his position. Now that he was forced to become a lich, he decided to give up. However, Poland didn't have such thoughts. Hence, he didn't follow Cannell's orders to carry out his mission. Instead, he found a weak point in the city's barrier and planned to slip away. Family? Sorry. He had lived for more than 100 years. He hadn't found any girls of the same rank, so most of them were lovers. Some of them didn't even have children. The life or death of the servants in his house had nothing to do with him under such circumstances. Currently, due to the barrier in the city, the magical beast had yet to riot. However, the moment the barrier shattered, the magical beast began to panic. However, the moment the barrier broke, the suffocating stench of blood and Cannell's secret technique would definitely cause most of the magic beasts in the city to go berserk. At that time, it was hard to say how many people would be left in this city, which had a population of more than 1 million. After making up his mind, Poland left immediately. Without any hesitation, he arrived at a ruin in the northern part of the city and found a tunnel. That was because this was the weakest point of the barrier. Even a great wizard could dig a hole in the barrier left behind by the old city lord. Even if he attracted Cannell's attention, he would still be able to escape. Since they were both epic rank professionals, Cannell wouldn't be able to leave the city to chase after him, let alone catch up. The underground tunnel was dark and gloomy with only a few magic lamps. After walking for a long time, Poland finally arrived at a location close to the barrier. However, he didn't know why. Today, the underground tunnel was especially cold. Even though he was an epic rank professional, he felt a little uneasy. However, he only expanded his magic fluctuations to the surroundings to ensure that Cannell wasn't following him. Just as he was about to cast a spell to break the barrier, under the illumination of the magic lamp, the shadow behind him seemed to come alive. It was Cannell. Right now, he was pitch black like an African, only a pair of sharp teeth reflecting a deathly pale radiance. He appeared behind Polander just like that, exhaling cold air as he spoke sinisterly. Even now, you want to betray me? The City of Dawn and the Eastern Mercenary Alliance were defending against the Fifth Beast Tide. At a time like this, both of them were exhausted. The Mercenary Alliance had suffered heavy losses. Half of the 50,000 elite Vanguard army had died in battle. Many Grandmaster professionals had also died on the battlefield. This was a heavy loss for the Mercenary Alliance. Paul Bane and the other epic rank professionals were even planning to use their domains to sweep across a large area. However, at this moment, the vicious and cruel magical beasts in front of them showed signs of awakening, and their attacks became chaotic. Not only would they attack humans, but they would also kill each other. Many of the magical beasts that were biting the humans suddenly suffered a fatal blow from their companions. They stopped bullying the humans in front of them and turned around to bite their own kind of magical beasts. After all, this beast tide wasn't a group of animals. If they weren't attracted by Cannell's secret technique, they would have started killing each other. Following the earth-shattering explosions, even the pitch-black barrier began to crack. Everyone understood immediately. There was a riot in the beast tide. Someone might have started fighting with Cannel. But at this moment, an even more terrifying beast tide appeared. The beast tide that Cannel had prepared for them was now in chaos. Hundreds of thousands of magical beasts charged at the bloody battlefield, and even the beast tide. William and Paul Bain understood the situation at the same time. They couldn't wait any longer. They attacked the citadel in order to claim its legacy. They didn't want the city to be completely destroyed. What was more important was, if they were held back by hundreds of thousands of magical beasts and didn't have a fortification like the city wall, then they might be completely annihilated. Both sides attacked the beast tide at the same time in an attempt to tear open a bloody path in the army. The Dragonblood Legion had the advantage in numbers, so they were one level faster. On the other hand, the Mercenary Alliance had suffered heavy losses. However, even if their will to fight wasn't firm, in this kind of battlefield where there was no way out, they had no choice but to muster all their courage and strength to advance forward. Time passed quickly. People died just as quickly. The moment both sides landed on the city wall, both William and Garnier's hearts turned cold. There were hundreds of thousands of magical beasts outside the city. Meanwhile, the Beastmaster Citadel's army was fighting against the magical beasts inside the city. What was even more unbelievable was that Cannel had summoned a demonic nest inside the city. The undead army appeared. The corpses on the ground stood up one after another. The current beast tide had turned into a purgatory. Damn it, this is a bloody loss. The prince wanted to cough up blood. Paul Bain coughed up blood. Cannel is unworthy of being a human.